the heck, StreamYard? You changed the countdown music. I am so confused right now. Anyway, hello. I'm Nathan Marchand, and welcome to this crossover episode between But I Digress and the Monster Island Film Vault. So hello to all of my listeners, viewers, readers, and everything in between. And as I call the listeners of my podcast, the kaiju lovers. And today we're doing something a little bit different. Last month, I had Ryan, the Omniviewer Collins, on to talk about an actual topic related to creativity and writing. But this month, I am bringing on a fellow author to be interviewed, none other than Alyssa Charpentier.
Hello, everyone. It is I, Sharpie, Sharpay, charcuterie board, whatever you want to call me.
Yeah. Your last name is ripe for puns, and I kind of love it.
It's perfect because I love puns. So bring it on. There's no wrong way to say it, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
well, I'm sure there is a wrong way, but I have yet to find it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how long it took me to figure out how to say it correctly, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure early on I probably would have pronounced it as written, like a dirty American, Charpentier, but I thought it sounded weird. So
right,
at some point I changed it. Yeah, what?
Yeah, it's a French word. It's just French for carpenter. That's literally it. Like,
hey,
I just thought it sounded classy, sophisticated. It's related to my family, so I figured I would reprise it for my pen name. And well, I am now Charpentier. So.
Yeah. Hey, you're in good company. My surname is French.
Okay, I did not know that.
It means merchant, so it's kind of about on the same level of on the nose.
Yeah, a merchant of books, a merchant of creativity. I love that.
Yeah. There you go. And then if you throw in my first name, which is Hebrew for gift of God, I guess I'm the gift of God merchant.
You're selling gifts of God.
Which 500 years ago would have gotten an entire religious revolution started, because
there you go. I love it.
Martin Luther. He's like, screw you Catholics and your indulgences.
Oh, the Protestants, yes.
And then he went off and became, manic depressanted all over the place, because that's what Martin Luther does. Seriously, man. Quick funny story about Martin Luther I don't know how we got on this subject, but my favorite Martin Luther story is he ended up marrying a renegade nun.
Okay.
That he basically helped escape from a convent, and he married her really only to keep her safe.
Wow.
And like I said, he was prone to depression, so he was having this particularly low point, and his wife spent the entire day at their house with the kids and everything, wearing a black dress, and which was weird. And then finally, he's just like, "Why are you wearing this black dress?" And her response was, "Well, since you act like God is dead, I thought I'd dress accordingly."
That is spicy. Wow.
And he immediately, cheered up. He's like, you got me, honey. You got me there, honey.
That's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah.
The things I learned.
The things you learn, which is actually one of the things that I admire most about you, is just like, you're just, well, I since I have your books here, your poetry collection kind of says it all, 19 going on, 19 reaching 90.
Yes.
I have, it didn't, like, there it goes. I dropped it. Hold on. We'll do it live. And it didn't take me long to realize that you are the textbook definition of old soul.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There is so many people, so many different people throughout my life. Coworkers, family, friends, random people I've met and didn't know for very long, who are like, "You're such an old soul." I'm like, okay, if everybody's saying this, it's got to be true. And then, I really resonate with that. So yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, because I was genuinely surprised because the way I discovered you, if I remember correctly, it was back during your Alyssa Goji Geek days,
Mhm.
on YouTube, and
Mhm.
because being neck
Being a
deep
Godzilla
in
fan.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, being neck deep in the Godzilla fandom,
Mhm.
as a podcaster, I think I'm trying to remember if someone told me about you or if one of your videos just popped up on my feed one day because of the, supposedly all-knowing YouTube algorithm.
Mhm.
And I started watching them and I was genuinely impressed with how thoughtful and intelligent your videos were.
Well, thank
And
you. That really means a lot.
I've even cited some of your videos on my podcast, just so you
Wow.
know. Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. I think
Mhm.
if I could ever get a single compliment for the stuff I did on my Godzilla channel, I think that would be what I would choose to hear. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And I figured out very quick, I was like, there's no way she's this young. There's no way she's this young.
I don't feel that young, trust me. I feel like I'm centuries old some days, but also I have the heart of a kid, so like I don't know what I am.
Oh well, it's like the old saying, grow old, but never grow up.
Exactly. Yep.
I think that's a great attitude to have.
For
So,
sure. I think you also embody that.
oh, thank you very much. Yeah,
For
I've
sure. I like
been.
that you keep your kind of your youth very alive, very fresh with your interests and your nerdy stuff and the stuff that you do. Personally, I have never been one to want to be a very stale, boring person. I'm very in tune with my interests and stuff, and I see that in you as well. And really, a lot of my friends that I have, we all like kind of have this common thread where we're all just kind of youthful and exuberant at heart, but we're all very old in here.
Yeah,
And yeah, I see that in you as well. So
yeah. Well, thank you very much. Maybe that's why we connected
yeah.
as well as we did, because I did not meet you. I had some interactions with you for a little while, followed your
Mhm.
stuff,
Yeah.
and I had you on the podcast once, and for King Kong versus Godzilla of all things. I wanted you on for Hetera, but that was just not in the cards. But
Mhm.
it hurt not having you on for that one.
It almost happened.
It
Yeah.
hurts so much not having you on. And I did not meet you in person until G Fest, when you were tabling at the convention and you were like, oh my gosh,
Made that
I'm
happen.
tabling for the first time. I don't know what to do with myself. And you were just giddy. And I'm like, oh, I remember my first time. It was
Yeah,
nerve
it
wracking and
was it was
exciting.
my first time vending, and I was like, I was contacted to do that, and it's like, well, um, being asked to sell non-Godzilla books at a Godzilla convention, like, what are the chances of that happening ever again? You know,
Mm-hmm.
even if I'd stayed involved with the community, I don't know if that would have happened again, unless
Mm-hmm.
I had really, really pushed for it. But it was really a blessing. Like I felt very blessed. It was such a
Yeah.
wonderful feeling. I got to meet you and so many other friends and like subscribers and people I just
Mm-hmm.
knew and liked, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a wonderful time.
And you got to panel and
I
talk.
did get to panel.
And
Yes,
you were on the writers panel, the illustrious G Fest
yes,
writers panel.
that was fun. Honestly, like that was. I had people coming up to me afterward and like asking me questions and like talking to me about writing and stuff. That was a phenomenal feeling. That was an amazing panel. I
Mm-hmm.
like the Hedora panel too, because of course, but the writers panel had a different flavor to it. It felt like people really cared about my input, which was very humbling and very fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to be with all you guys, my
Mm-hmm.
friends, and it was really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm actually something I know you've talked about this in some of your videos and all of that, but I actually am a little bit curious because you know you're a- you're a crazy creative type, and so I have to know what sparked your interest in the arts when you
Mm.
were a somehow tinier Alyssa. I say that in jest because people, if you ever meet her in person, I have rarely seen adult women as small as she is. I'm pretty sure I could. My fingertips could reach all the way around her waist. She is so tiny.
I think you would not be wrong there. Yes, I I call myself fun-sized.
Fun-sized. Although something that you everyone should remember, this is especially true with women in my experience. The smaller they are, the feistier they are. I don't know what it is. I don't make the rules. This is just mathematics of nature. All right. All that to say, don't make her angry.
We're vertically and horizontally challenged. We have to assert ourselves another way. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's like small dogs are the meanest ones.
Yeah.
It's not the big ones, because the big ones know I look scary. They won't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so yeah.
My interest in the arts. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you do so much. You're not just a writer. You're not just a YouTuber. You're a photographer. You are a musician. You do so much.
I do. I really run the gamut of creative things, and it's weird because I never think of myself. I know this sounds strange, but I never think of myself as a creative person. I think it's just so ingrained in who I am that I never think of myself that way, because it's just what I am. It's like my autopilot mode is to be making things, doing things. But yeah, I got interested in the arts really probably through Godzilla and movies that I loved growing up, and music. And as I went through my teenage years and I started to realize I like analyzing things, then my interest in the arts exploded. Suddenly, I was obsessed with music because I liked to know how it was made, hearing background instruments, background vocals. I would listen to instrumental tracks. I still do this. I love listening to instrumental tracks of lyric-filled songs and instrumental stuff in general. Artists like Tame Impala, which I'm representing today. I absolutely love this guy. Phenomenal music. If you like psychedelic rock and pop, this guy's amazing. I started getting to artists like that who just continued re-upping and enhancing my creativity. I'm like, wow, I really like this. I like analyzing it. I like making it. I like consuming it. I just love this. So really, it started when I was a little kid with Godzilla, and then as I grew older, I started adding more things, adding more interest to my plate, until I ended up having a buffet of things that I love. So, yeah.
So I have to ask then, this is the Godzilla thing in me coming out. What was your first?
My first Godzilla movie, I believe it was Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth, because I remember the Ferris wheel. I think this could have been a fabricated memory, but I seem to remember when I was a really, really little kid, I was in my high chair eating pears or something, and this movie was on. It was put on for me, and I just kind of remember that, and I don't know if that's a real memory or not, but yeah. I also grew up with everyone's favorite, the 98 Matthew Broderick film. Okay. Which I do not hate. I actually really enjoy that movie. Is it a great film? No, it's really not. But I really enjoy it, and I have very fond childhood memories of watching it. So that was another one I grew up with, and obviously I grew up with Hedorah.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that because that was your favorite.
One of my staples.
By far your favorite.
Quigley became my favorite.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, quite. As we like to say on my podcast for a hot minute. It's interesting. I would think you would remember the Ferris wheel because it is a weaponized Ferris wheel.
Yes. I've ridden that Ferris wheel.
Oh.
I made
yes,
sure.
because you spent what was it, about a year and a half?
2 years in Japan.
2 years.
And it was in Yokohama. And I didn't know when I went there that was real, that wasn't just made up for the movie. I was like, my friend was on the train with me. He pointed it out. He's like, you see that Ferris wheel? That's the one from the movie. I'm like, wait, that's real? Mine was blown. And I rode it 15 times, 20 times over the course of my time in Japan. It was just a thing I like to go do, is go ride the Cosmo Clock.
And every second you're on it, you're sitting there going, it's like, man, Petra grabbed this and rammed it into Godzilla, that jerk.
Yeah. And then the landmark tower across the way that was also in the movie, and just is surreal. It's really surreal seeing this stuff in person, because it's one thing to watch a movie and like know these things are real, like have that knowledge. It's one thing to be there and have suddenly everything's oriented. And it's not exactly oriented the way you expect. It's same with hiking. I tell people like who don't like hiking, they're like, why would I go on a 5-mile hike to go see a rock? I can see pictures of it on Google. And my counter argument is it's not the same for many reasons. One thing, you're actually getting exercise and getting sunshine, you're enjoying yourself. Two,
at vitamin D, dang it.
Yeah, it's never the way it looks on pictures. It's never the same. Like, it's completely different. So that was my experience in Japan, was like, you think it's one way because you see the movie. It's never exactly the way you think it is.
Yeah, because that was an interesting era for your Godzilla channel. And I don't want to, land there for this entire conversation necessarily, but I love the travelogue videos where you were going to locations from the movies, and I'm just like, I have not had the privilege of going to Japan yet anyway, but I would love to do something similar to what you did, where I make a list of locations where they either recreated in the movies, or perhaps they filmed there or something like that. Because you went to Mount Mihara, you tracked down the beach scene from Hatera.
Yes. with
Hello? Oh no. I don't know if anyone can see this, but I think we lost Alyssa. Did we lose Alyssa? Oh no. She froze. I don't like this. Ah, dang it. This is what happens when you do it live. Oh, we lost her. Dang it, we lost her. No. All right. Now I got, oh, dang it. Don't worry, guys. I'm trying to get her back. Hold on. I'm trying to get her back.
I'm back.
Okay. I have no idea what happened there.
I guess that was my internet. It showed that it was there, and then it just died.
Yeah, are you at a hotel? You told me you might be at a hotel.
I'm in a hotel right now, so
we'll just blame it on the hotel internet. There you go.
Oh, stupid hotel. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we were talking about you found the beach location.
Yes. With help with the help of my good friend Danny. He actually sent me the address, and I was like, huh, there's no way that this was able to be tracked down. But I went there and I was like, you know what? I could see this. And yeah, it was awesome. And I was like trying to find where exactly each scene was shot. And it was super cool. So thank you, Danny. Danny, once again, giving amazing information and gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, to kind of bounce off of that a little bit, because I think this goes into your background as well. Something that I have observed that has been a very consistent theme with whatever it is that you've worked on, whether it's your books, your videos, you have made something of a career for yourself. I don't know if the right word would be outsider or minority in certain groups, and that is definitely reflected in your work, whether it's being a girl in the Godzilla fandom, a woman in the Navy, what were some other ones? Being a Christian who writes dark fantasy, you know.
I find myself, it's difficult like realizing those things about yourself, because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, you're just being woke or something," or which I am not. So, there's that. But people are like, "Oh, they might think the wrong thing about you when you kind of like articulate that it can be distressing sometimes being an outsider, or as you said, like sort of in some cases a minority of sorts." I don't know if I consider myself a minority. I'm just a white girl, just here.
Well, whoa, we got some rumble going on there.
I can't eat spice, I'll die.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that what you mentioned is really interesting. It's hard to talk about that kind of thing without being or sounding a certain way, but I totally get what you're saying. I definitely feel like an outsider in a lot of things. Like I find myself drawn to kind of like male dominated spheres, communities. It's just a natural thing for me. Like the Navy, like the Godzilla fandom. When I joined, there were a lot fewer women than there are now. For better, for worse, for whatever, it's a mixed thing. Very different.
Yeah.
I definitely would consider myself an outsider for sure.
Yeah. It's like I said, it comes through.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear someone like kind of point out that comes through in my stuff. It's like,
well,
for the record, it is not.
I've been reading your first book here, and
that one.
Poor Twilight is just like she is.
For sure.
She's so. It's like I was reading this. I'm like, what you could call this? Dark Cinderella. That's what this.
Yeah, that's what people have said. They've said like it kind of starts out that way. As it goes through, it becomes less like Cinderella and more like, I don't even know what to call it. A very dark, violent story. But yes, the theme of outsider. It's also in A Maiden's Wish. It's also in Aubrey, the spin-off book. It's in. It's in my poetry book. It's in.
Oh yeah, it's really in the poetry book.
And it's like, I feel like that annoys people sometimes, or they don't really understand it, or they're just like, "Oh, you're trying to be like a pick-me girl or be something you're not." And truth be told, this is just the way that I am, and I kind of create to reach other outsiders and also to reach just the average person and kind of like help them understand what it's like. And I also think, the feelings I have and the experiences I have and things, they're also universal. So I kind of try to merge universal truths and experiences, because we can all relate to each other. We're all the same species, we're all going through the same general things. But also I try to merge that with, but what if you're also an outsider? Mm-hmm. What if you can relate to a lot of people and resonate with a lot of people, but you're all
not again. Oh, I thought we lost you again. Hold on.
Oh,
we'll do it live.
I'm losing. I see you glitching. I see myself so far. Okay.
All right.
So far.
Anyway,
I'm sure this will probably happen again. Just full disclosure.
Yeah.
Probably won't.
It's okay.
We'll manage. Yeah.
We'll manage. Anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, just the outsider thing. I kind of noticed that about myself. Like it's very prevalent in my stuff. It's just my life.
Yeah, I was gonna say I get the impression it's not something that you sought out. It just happened.
It just is.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of my creativity. It's not like I'm gonna seek out to write this thing with these tropes and these whatever. I write what I know, and I write what inspires me. I write what is true to me. And being an outsider is one of those things.
Yeah. I want to focus more on, because this was something that, as I've seen you process it, is something that I understand quite a bit as well. And that was your struggle to, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, to find acceptance with other Christian writers.
Oh boy.
And how they just didn't get you because you didn't want to fit in the nice little molds that
The
they
mold
have.
is, it's so boring. I'm gonna be frank, you know. I found clean Christian books that I enjoy. I found a few that have touched my heart, but by and large, I just don't care for what's going on with the modern Christian entertainment sphere. I find it very bland, ineffective, preachy. Like, there's a difference between putting a message in something and letting people come to a conclusion that they want to come to. Hopefully, the one that you kind of want them to, but you let them do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And giving a full on sermon. Um, and I just find modern Christian entertainment to be so repetitive and boring. The music, the movies, the books, there's just a dearth of substance, and that's not how it's supposed to be. I think
Yeah.
if you believe in a higher power and you're committed to that, that should make your work even more powerful. That should be like you're golden, like you're gonna tell amazing stories because you believe that life matters, that everybody matters, that there are stakes on this life, that there is a supernatural realm, a spiritual world. That should make your stuff 10 times better. But instead, we just get, frankly, a lot of drivel.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? I'm sure you could probably see some.
Oh, jeez. You and I could pontificate about this for several hours if not longer. But I have been feeling like that. I actually probably even when you were just a wee lass, I was seeing it. When I was trying to get my writing career started, and how I knew very early on when I wanted to do this that like I don't want to go through a Christian publisher because I don't think they'll like me. Just gonna be
No.
frank. I don't think they're going to like me. And so that was my first step. And as time has gone on, and I have spent most of my time, most of it, focusing more on on perfecting my craft and not so much worrying about am I going to appeal to a Christian audience or not, because that's not my goal.
Mm-hmm.
And the a recent thought that I had, and I think this is an incredibly profound one, and I think one that you'll appreciate, and that is I've heard some people now who argue that if you are a Christian, whatever it is that you do, you should be the best, the best, whatever of that out there, because that's what God calls you to do. And
Yeah.
if you look at history, some of the greatest, people in history were Christians. They were explorers, they were artists, that they were doing all of these things motivated in part by their faith because they knew that they were called to excellence.
Yeah.
And
Call to excellence is a great way to put it. Now it's like we have these bloodless, toothless, kind of just gummy mouth Christians is one way to put it. They're like they'll give you a clean, fluffy, good feeling message, or they'll give you a really borderline hateful message that has no filter whatsoever. Neither of which is good. But it's like they're not creating an effect, you know.
mm-hmm,
It's like
mm-hmm,
I can't turn someone to Christianity. That is not in my power to do so. What I can do is share my life, my testimony, my experiences through my art and hope that maybe you'll start to see some patterns. Maybe you'll start to relate to that and want more for yourself if you don't know the Lord. And maybe you'll just, maybe you'll investigate. If I
yeah,
can get someone to really think about something, that's the best thing a piece of art can do, honestly.
mm-hmm,
I'm
yeah,
not
no,
out here I'm not out here necessarily to change people's minds. I'm not out here to make converts per se. If I do, that's amazing.
mm-hmm,
But I'm here to stimulate thought. I
mm-hmm,
have a perspective. You have a perspective. Everybody has a perspective. I believe in true good and evil. I believe in some moral absolutes for sure, because that's just kind of what it's like when you're a Christian. You have to believe certain things are true and certain things are not. I bring that perspective in a kind of more relativist world where people are like, well, it could be this or it could be that. And it's like, for your perspective, sure. Have you ever thought about it from this perspective? And so it's just a sharing of perspectives as part of what
mm-hmm,
art is about.
yeah,
And I like to share
actually.
my worldview.
Yeah, and actually, approaching it that way is remarkably effective. Quick story, and this is actually Godzilla related. I will never forget. It was at a G Fest. I want to say it was like 2017,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there, and I ran into a young guy, and we were hanging out at the con, and we got into the subject of Shin Godzilla, and he was repeating some of the things that I had heard some other podcasters, bring up. We were saying like, "Oh, I think it's nationalist propaganda or whatever," and then I just like, "Well, hold on here a second. What about this, this, and this in that movie?" And he's like, "Huh," and then I just left it at that. Within, I think, a couple of months, he randomly got a hold of me online. He's like, "Hey, remember me? We talked about Shin Godzilla G Fest." Yeah, I do. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just want you to know, I watched the movie again, and I agree with you now."
Interesting. See?
And I'm like, I didn't hammer it over his head. I just like, can you go like think about these parts of the movie and tell me if that matches up anymore?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then he just changed his mind. That's all I just planted ideas, and then he drew new conclusions.
You present some compelling evidence and you leave them to make their own conclusion.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing for art to do.
Mm-hmm. And what makes it even better is he was one of my first patrons, and he's still a patron to this day. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
You did some good there. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember where I was going to go with that, but because that is a whole thing unto itself, and it's not easy because, well, okay, now I remember what I was going to say. It's like, one trope that I'm getting a little tired of seeing in Christian media, will say, is like, do we really need this many Jesus movies? I'm just saying. Okay,
I've seen a lot of those too. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, how many times can we tell this story? Okay, we get it.
Right.
Or they're mildly, or if it's not Jesus, they just do adaptations of Bible stories. Like, I get it, that's cool, but I don't know.
Can we do a little more like?
Yeah, can you?
I want to see more like contemporary Christian media, like stuff that takes place in the present day, and it's dealing with people's struggles and stuff. I think that's cool.
Or here's my argument: if you're gonna do Bible stories, can you pick the ones that nobody touches? Like,
yeah, not the ones that are like kind of sort of done to death.
Yeah, like pick any of the other judges besides Samson, even though I'm just saying, because I think somebody tried to do this. I can't remember who, or the Angel Studios or something. Judging by the trailer, it looked like they were trying to do Samson in the vein of Conan the Barbarian. I'm like, I can get behind this actually. But I haven't watched it yet. But I'm like, any of the other judges, right? Just pick any of them. Leave Gideon out. People like, he's kind of like a distant second to Samson. Like, give me an action movie about Ehud, the left-handed swordsman. That just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like if you read the story,
representation.
I was gonna say, you read the story of Ehud, he's an action movie waiting to happen. He's got a special skill, he has a calling, he has a villain who's like ancient Jabba the Hutt. I'm like the whole thing, like you read the story, he literally walks into this guy's room, and says, "I have a message from God for you." And then he's like, "Oh, what's that?" He takes out his sword with the left hand because he fooled everybody because they think he's going to be right-handed, and then stabs the guy.
There you go.
And then it says that he's so fat that the fat enveloped the sword.
I think I remember this.
Yeah. And then he does this daring escape to get out of it. It's like, this is an action movie. I need an action movie with this guy.
That's so funny. It would be good.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that, like surprises. Come on,
Yeah, surprises would be
do something
nice.
weird, like play around with pull a C.S. Lewis, play with Greek mythology, with Till We Have Faces. Do something like that. Don't get hung up over the paganness of it. Play with it.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be nice.
It's just one of those things, I feel like there were a lot of Christians have kind of been trained to find anything and everything potentially offensive, and they're just not, they have such a protective little bubble that they're not willing to get outside of it, which I think oftentimes makes them naive.
Yes, absolutely. I know a lot of Christians who are still living at home and they're not like, they've never had a job, they've never gone out in the world, they've never traveled, they've never done anything, but they want to understand and reach people with their stuff. It's like, sure, you can understand, you can be an intuitive, empathetic person and still understand people without necessarily having experience. But as someone who's in the military and travels a lot and knows a lot of different types of people, that has really enhanced my understanding of human beings, their complexities and stuff. It's like, I'm not in a safe little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all, you know, and that's been good for me. Like that's actually made life better for me. And I just think a lot of Christians are shortchanging themselves, like a lot of experiences and growth by not getting out there and doing anything. But they still want to like create this like really compelling, majestic art. It's like, I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice by not actually knowing how people work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like yeah, you can't really reach people if you don't really understand their lives
Mm-hmm.
and the temptation and sin and stuff like that. Like you can't, you know what I mean? It's hard.
Mm-hmm. It's like the adage that I heard when I was in college, nothing bad happens to a writer, it's all material.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's awesome. This is how we process our suffering.
Yeah, we put it
See,
all on the page.
yeah. Also, I'm familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another aspect of your background, I'd like to know how this influences, your work now. And that is where you grew up. You grew up in Washington State.
Yes.
So are you
You
born
did
and
your homework.
raised?
Very good.
Yes, I did. Like I said, I've been a fan for a while. Were you born and raised in Washington State?
Yes.
Okay. So how would you say that has influenced you as an artist?
So I grew up in a fairly smallish town, across from a smallish city slash big town. I don't really know what to call it. I grew up on the Washington-Idaho border, and that was pretty cool because I have a deep affinity for both states. They're both home to me. But growing up in a smallish town, um, not the most glamorous upbringing. We didn't have a whole lot of money and stuff, and my mom wasn't really around a lot. I really learned how to entertain myself. Like, I heard this all the time from my family. Oh, don't worry about Alyssa. She's good at entertaining herself. Anytime as a kid I was like at somebody's house or something, they're like, don't worry, she's gonna go draw or write or something. She'll be fine. Just leave her for a few hours. She's not gonna go anywhere. Growing up in a small town and with the kind of upbringing that I had, I think it actually like fostered my creativity and my desire to see more of the world. Because when you're in this little bubble, and I love my hometown, but when you're in this little bubble and you have kind of like this unglamorous, kind of lonely upbringing, it makes you hungry. I was a very lonely kid, not to make this all sad and everything, but I'm a melancholy soul, so I apologize. Uh, I learned to want more, and Washington State is a beautiful state. So on the scenic level, gorgeous. Idaho, second home to me, also gorgeous. Something about the pine trees and the also in my hometown the desert. Something about that was just the extremes that I grew up in. It was really kind of fun, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a desert flower. What can I say?
Oh. Yeah, you do have siblings, right?
I have one sibling. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brother, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, my kid brother.
Mm-hmm. How much younger is he, if I may ask?
12 years younger.
12 years. Okay, that explains it. Because I'm like, how can you be a lonely child if you have siblings? You're talking to somebody who's the oldest of four. So
he and I are getting the exact same upbringing, just reversed. Like he spent his first few years with me. I spent my last few years with him, and now, it's kind of now he's gonna grow up to be an only child pretty much on the back end.
yeah, that's what happened to my mother. She was 10 and 12 years younger than her two sisters. So they were gone by the time she was about 6.
Wow. Yeah, sounds about right for me.
Yeah. Now my dad was in a bit of a similar situation, but he had a twin brother. So we always
Okay.
had at least one person around to hang
Yeah,
out with.
that's cool.
Yeah. So it's that's why I was wondering, because I jokingly tell people, it's like, hey, can you at least have 2 kids, because only children in my experience tend to grow up and have issues.
Yeah. Yeah. We tend to be overachievers, have
Yeah.
stricter upbringings.
Yeah, or they think that, or they grow up thinking it's like thinking that they always have to be the center of the universe because they were
Yes.
always the center of mom and dad's attention.
Mhm. Yep.
And I'm just like,
That's fair.
no, that's not how the world works. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen the memes about the eldest child, the middle child, the baby, and then just kind of only children. My brother came into my life just soon enough for me to, not be too in my own world, but yeah.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah,
he's getting on the
12
back end.
12 years. That's crazy. So he's like in 5th grade right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 10. Mhm.
Yeah, that's nuts. I did
He's
not
awesome.
realize he
Yeah,
was
I
that
love
much
my little
younger.
bro. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love him.
All right. Well, again, that kind of comes through when I, been reading, the, Daughter Darkness, and
Yeah, that does come through in
how
that book.
Twilight kind of hates her whole family, especially her siblings. Well, and Dad's not great either. I'm going to assume this is not written from experience.
No, I don't ever hated a
Oh, I thought I
other
lost
parental
you again.
figure.
I
Oh,
thought
I'm
you.
still here. Cool.
Okay.
Are
Anyway, you were saying no, and then no,
you
not
cutting
this.
out?
Okay, this is getting annoying.
I feel like we're on the verge again. We're probably on the verge again, but I'll keep talking.
Okay. Can you
Until
can you hear me right now?
I can, and your screen isn't glitching anymore, so that's good.
Okay, good. So you said no, and then I didn't catch what was next.
I don't hate my parents for sure, and
Okay.
I don't have sisters, so those dynamics are completely invented.
Yeah.
The brother dynamic between Twilight and her brother Joshua, that is that's real.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to make stuff up. Trust me, I've been there.
Oh yeah. It's the job of the writer. Not everything is real, but a lot of things are.
Yeah. But speaking of that, where do you get your ideas? Let's talk a little bit about, about the craft right now. Where do you get your ideas?
Oh boy, I get them from a lot of places. Boy. Sometimes I'm inspired by another piece of media. A lot of things I kind of draw from personal experience or things I've observed. Things that bother me. I think like things that really trouble me as a person or affect me personally, I like to turn into characters and themes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, just it's very personal for me. Just the process I go about, it's just very like internalized stuff and things that I don't want other people to have to suffer with or deal with. A lot of kind of compassion, I guess, for people who deal with similar issues and just kind of wanting to reach them. And the outsider thing, which kind of
Yeah.
falls into that. I get it from a lot of places.
Yeah. So what's your writing process, right? I love asking this question because every writer is a little bit different. Some people I've learned that there's kind of two, speaking broadly, there are two kind of primary types of writers. They're the outliners,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are we call them pantsers because they fly
Yes.
by the seat of their pants. Well,
Yep.
some of them like to be called discovery writers. And then you have, I would say for me personally, I'm kind of like a little bit in the middle. I try
Me
to kind of
too.
cherry pick from both sides. I will
Yeah.
do enough of an outline that I at least know what the broad strokes are going to be, especially if it's something big. If it's something shorter, like a short story, I'll probably just go into it. But if for a longer piece, like a book, a script, full length script or whatever, I at least want to do like a broad strokes outline, just so I have, and I just like, okay, these are the major points I want to hit, because I like leaving myself enough room to kind of play,
Yeah,
to
for sure.
make stuff up on the fly, especially if I come up with a better idea on the fly. It's like, it's like improv. It's like doing improv comedy, to a certain extent. You're given a situation and then you just make up the details.
Yeah.
I took a class actually in a summer years ago on improv comedy, and it was fascinating to learn what that particular art was. But what is it
Yeah.
like for you? Are you an outliner? Are you a pantser? Are you kind of in between?
So like you, I'm in the middle. Um, my first two books were written without outlines, and I feel like it shows. Uh, I pure like emotional, kind of just feeling based writing. Since then, I've started outlining and doing kind of that filling in the details as I go sort of thing. Sometimes I write a whole first draft and realize I screwed a bunch of stuff up and the logistics weren't working out. And so I'll go back and then I'll create an outline. With what I have, I will try to either adapt it, throw it away, or somehow fit it into my outline because I like what I did and it fits like what I'm going for, but it needs to be refined. Currently, with the book I'm writing right now, it was a case of first draft, no outline, just emotional writing, just kind of writing from the seat of my pants.
Are you talking about
Um,
Strange Flesh or?
no, so the book I'm writing right now, I haven't really talked about this much. It's called Dante. It's a
Okay, yeah,
contemporary
I've heard you talk. I've seen you post about
thriller
this.
type thing. Yeah, drama thriller, whatever you want to call it. I'm still undecided. Um, I wrote like almost the full first draft. And then I realized, wow, I like screwed all this up. Like things are out of order, like timelines aren't lining up, there's plot holes. And so now I'm going through knowing kind of like the vibe I've created, the atmosphere I've created with this story. I'm going through now and I'm outlining the chapters and I'm deciding what's going to go where. And that has streamlined the process so much. It's like just kind of knowing what I also do is I'm filling in lore, knowing who my characters are, how they relate to each other, and then using that as like a cause and effect for the plot. Like this character did this to this person, which creates this scenario later in the story, which is going to affect this other character this way. So that's what I'm doing right now. I wrote the book initially, the horrible first draft, and now I'm going through and I'm refining, editing, tossing stuff out, outlining, fixing. Another part of my process, and this is something I actually did last night, I will like have a really strong idea for a scene. I'll have like an emotional moment or something where I feel or think something, and then I'm like, wow, that really applies to these characters. And so then I'll create a scene based on that, and then I will find a way to implement that into the outline. So last night I wrote a scene between two characters in my forthcoming novel, based on something I was thinking about that night, and it totally fit. It's going to go in the book, and part of my editing process is to figure out where. So I will add that to the outline, but the scene is its own separate thing. I didn't write it in the main document. I find that intimidating to write new chapters in the main document, because then it's like, oh crap, where am I going to put this? Where am I going to squeeze this in here? Oh, now I'm distracted by the text around me. When I write a new scene that's going into an existing story, I write it separately. Like we're talking a notepad app on the phone, writing it down by hand, whatever. Then when I go to my outline, I figure out where to put it and I make the arrangements there. So that's another part of my process is scene writing. It
That's
builds
interesting.
drama. Yeah, it's something I kind of just I kind of started in the last two books or so, like just writing scenes. Like, I'm feeling like melancholy about whatever thing in my life. These characters are also feeling the same way. Oh my gosh, this connects. And that's how I write. Really, that's how I've written some of my very best scenes. It's just separately on a separate document or notepad, and then putting it into the story later.
So do you always, start off handwriting it, or, do you just go straight to your word processor?
Almost always do digital because I like to be able to do it on the go. Like I'll be sitting on a bench somewhere and be like, "Oh, I want to write this scene," and a whole scene will just kind of appear on a bench somewhere in some city, uh, on an airplane, on foot. I'll even be like tippy tapping away and just like, I'm thinking about this. Um, Here in my hotel room last night, I was sitting here on the bed and I was like, I'm thinking about this thing. I'm gonna make that into a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, pretty much. I like to have the digital because it's on the go. When I write down lore, I try to record that in both digital and print, so I don't lose
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm asking because I've known some writers who they have to start off writing it by hand and then they transcribe and kind of edit
Yeah.
it as they go. I've occasionally experimented with that just to see if I like it. Doesn't
Yeah.
always work for me personally.
No, that's fair because it kind of takes a little longer. And I also like with digital writing, the ability to quickly change or delete things. Like if I see strike throughs and cross outs and stuff and red ink on a piece of paper, I'm going to get so distracted by that. But with like a digital app or something, I can just delete it and never have to think about it again. And now I have like I'm back to like square one. Like this is the foundation of whatever I'm trying to say. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not distracted by what was, um, you know, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's immediate changes.
Yeah, and I do understand the feelings about first drafts. It can be nerve wracking. Ernest Hemingway famously said that all first drafts are, you know, fill in the excrement.
Yeah.
You know, but then on the other hand, there's a famous sci-fi writer, Robert Heinlein, who supposedly had a conversation with the equally, if not more famous Isaac Asimov. And they were talking about first drafts, and you know, Asimov started talking about what he did for revisions, and Heinlein said, "You write more than one draft."
Yeah. That's so funny.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was kidding because I've read several Heinlein books. Like, there's no way you did this in one draft, sir.
Mhm.
You are not that talented. Nobody's that talented.
No, it's a process for sure. Editing
Yeah.
is as much a part of it as the writing itself.
Do you? That's actually an interesting question. What do you find harder, writing or editing?
Hmm. I think it depends on how badly I screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes with timelines and stuff, like I find myself like kind of forgetting what day it is when I'm writing sometimes. And so now I put little notes on my document saying Friday morning on this day. Then a week later, okay, well, it's Friday evening on this day. I find myself screwing that up a lot and it throws everything off. It's a disaster. So it depends on how badly like I got things out of order. Um yeah. If it's bad, editing can be quite an overhaul. But there's also something really refreshing about editing. You feel like you're more in control when you're editing because you're looking at what's already there and you're like, I'm going to fix that. I know what's wrong with this. I'm not in writing mode. I'm in identifying problems mode. And it actually, I think that's probably a little easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just wondering because for me personally, when it comes to writing, I think editing is easier.
Yeah.
Whereas with podcasting, editing is the most time consuming and labor intensive part of it for me personally, because I'm going through the audio and I'm like, okay, I gotta take this out, gotta take this out, gotta add the
Add in
music
sound
here,
effects. Mhm.
yeah, like that. Because I'm going to be honest with you, editing, in my experience, editing is the most time consuming part of podcasting, at
Oh,
least
for sure. I can
with
definitely see that.
with the way I do podcasting, because I definitely don't just throw up a raw recording. I go through and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to take out this tangent, or this long pause or whatever. I'm
In the
refining it.
videos. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was editing the longest part for video editing.
Yes. It's one thing to like record, but then like you said, there's tangents, there's just words that don't really belong, awkward stuff. I just
Mm-hmm.
you gotta
Or in
find
the
it all.
yeah, or in the case of like those travelogue videos, you've probably got like 5 hours of material that you got to distill down to, I don't know, 15
5
minutes.
minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. So you got to be like, okay, where do I put this shot, and where do I put this thing, I haven't gotten as deep into video editing as you have, but I'm already sitting here thinking it's like you can spend hours upon hours just working on a 5-minute video.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like a weird thought that came to my mind recently, thinking about like the amount of time that creators invest in a piece of work that they do. And then when you compare how long it takes an audience to partake of that, it's just astonishing.
It
There,
is.
filmmakers can spend a year minimum in most cases making a 90-minute or 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
2 hours, it's done. And you poured a year of your life into it. Or if you're writing a book, you might spend 6 months to a year getting out a full-length 300-page novel that some people can read in a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Just the ratio there, creation versus consumption.
Yeah, and then
I've
on
even
the
had those moments with myself, like reading my own stuff back. It's like this took me forever to do, and I only have like 4 chapters to show for it. Or like, oh wow, I read that book pretty fast. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and then on the other end, it's very easy. It's one of these kind of simple yet profound statements that I heard from, Godzilla versus Hedorah is your favorite movie. My favorite movie is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And, one of the most, obvious yet profound things said in that movie was by Mr. Spock, where he says, it is far easier to destroy than it is to create.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? You're right, because that's like the really simple thing that talked to the big sci-fi concept that they're dealing with, which, to put it succinctly, a big part of the plot of that movie revolves around a terraforming technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that they can basically fire a torpedo on a dead spatial body, a moon, a planet, or whatever, and it will transform it into a habitable planet. But here's the problem: if there's anything organic on that planet or whatever already, it wipes it out in favor of whatever its programming is.
Wow.
And they talked about how that was they had a conversation about this. Like, do we really have the right to even be doing something like this?
Yeah,
And they said, it's like, well, it's always been easier to destroy than it is to create. And I'm like, yeah, that is so crazy. I mean, like, someone could spend months or years carving a statue. It could be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and then all it takes is one bulldozer or a group of very determined people and 5 minutes on a rope, and they're just gonna pull it down, and it's destroyed forever.
Yeah.
That's and then unfortunately there are some people who make whole careers out of destroying whatever. I feel like that's how a lot of writers or just creators that kind of feel about critics. Like, they make whole careers out of destroying everything that I poured my heart and soul into for several years. Sometimes.
As someone who loves critiquing, my goal in mind when I critique something is, how could this have been better? How, obviously I have a little fun with it too. Like, I like to kind of make fun of the things that are being made that I really hate. And I also really like to uplift the things that I love. People who just do it only to tear things down or have no perspective or anything to offer, that's pretty hurtful for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah. I believe in edifying the good. And,
yeah, for
and
sure.
to be honest, it's more fun to talk about things you like. But we live
I've
in a
heard this so
culture.
much. I've heard that so much. It's better for you to talk about things that you love than things that you hate. It's just
Yeah. Now, I'm not
yeah.
saying that you shouldn't do that. And, if you know me, you listen to, the right episodes of the podcast or see some of the, the older YouTube videos that I did, I
Yeah.
would do, a little bit of a joke that I do now is I do a thing that I call Rant Master, where, just go humorously ballistic on something, and I do it to be funny.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets the joke, unfortunately. I even made a little sounder for it, that sounds like, like somebody, like it was inspired by the original Power Rangers, where they get the Megazord going, and you hear the computer voice go, Megazord activated, and so I did the same thing, where it's like Wrenchmaster activated, and then it
Mhm.
has like lightning bolts, and then I just go crazy. You know, it's meant to be funny.
Yeah.
Like I said, not everybody gets the joke, but
Mhm.
it is more interesting. Well, it might be entertaining in the moment to hear people just go ballistic on something, but I think it's more nourishing to hear people talk about something that they love.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just goes back to positivity versus negativity. Just like the
Yeah.
media. The media reports a lot of negative news because
Yeah.
that's what gets them press, that's what gets them views, but it's not good for you.
Oh no.
You're a lot more
No.
uplifted and inspired when you hear a positive story.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same with critiquing. Like the ratio of positive to negative critiques you do should probably be much more in favor of the positive.
Oh, for
For your
sure.
own for your own sanity and also for your audience's sanity, like talk about things you like more. And the
Mhm.
things you like, they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be great. I'm a big fan of disaster movies. I'm well aware they're not great pieces of art. Um, calling them pieces of art.
And we're bugging out again. We're bugging out again. Oh no. Oh no. Not again. No. Come back, Allison. Not Allison, Alyssa. Can't even get this right. Come back, Alyssa. Oh no. Uh I'm just waiting for her to like completely bug out and just disappear. Yeah. Am I still on stream? Chat, let me know. Am I still on stream? And I've lost her. Oh no, we'll do it live. Okay, thanks, Jake. Oh no. Uh it is kind of like the other night when we were recording, except it wasn't live, sir. It was not live. Uh, okay, okay. Yeah, she'll be back. She'll be back. The director of Volcano was listening and terminated her internet. Oh. Just give her a second. Just give her a second. I'm sure she'll be back. I I, I will tell you, since I've got a moment here, I've seen some of you have already put in questions and things like that. Go ahead, and if you have questions for Alyssa, I think we'll end the stream by taking some questions from the audience. So, start putting those in the chat, or at least some interesting comments so we can, kind of spur some more discussion there.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I think it's like cutting out every hour.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but I think we have a potential explanation here from our mutual friend, Mr. Demana. He says the director of Volcano was listening and terminated her internet.
I think the director of Volcano honestly definitely agrees with me. I've read the comments that the creators made, the script writer, screenwriter, director that they made about that movie. Well, maybe not the director as much, but like the people who wrote it, they're like, yeah, this movie sucks. But maybe the director is coming for me.
Okay. One of the other people in the chat right now, I'm kind of reserving, getting too much into the chat until a little bit later in the stream. But one of my co-hosts on Henshin Power V3 just left a comment when you were gone, and I'm like, what do I do? And he commented, Jake Hambrick, and he said, Nate, tell us about the time you took down 2 Terminators while we wait.
Well, let's hear it.
2 Terminators? You'll have to wait until my next book, I guess. Although funny enough, I do voice acting for I guess I don't know if you would call it a group or I guess an organization. They're called Scyther. Started by Carl Dutton, the guy who lives over in England, and he does fan-produced audio dramas. And his 2 flagship shows right now are adaptations of X-Men and Power Rangers. And I've made a name for myself being one of the bad guys on Power Rangers, and he's a guy who dresses in skeleton armor. And I produced a one-shot kind of origin story for him that was published in November, and I did everything on that. I wrote the script, I edited it, I directed it. Like I Mel Gibson the crap out of that thing, and you would probably enjoy it actually. Yeah,
Sounds fun.
It's plenty dark. I had a few people tell me, it's like, there are scenes that are going to live rent free in my head from that thing.
I love that.
But spoiler warning, he ended up finally getting killed, but then he got brought back as basically an undead cyborg. So I am a Terminator now on that show. That's what I'm saying, because it's like he's a skeleton, so he's a Terminator now.
Yeah, that's really cool. I could definitely see voice acting being a cool thing for you.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of fun actually, and in that one shot, Danny played a character.
Danny, I see him in the chat.
Yeah, he played a robot bounty hunter who got to rough up my character for a little bit.
Danny, that suits you.
I was like, man, when he got me his lines back, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
I love it.
Oh yeah. Let me see. Well, we do have a comment here from Danny. Let's see. You can't just tease us with the notion of dual Terminator pummelings and then leave us hanging. Spill the beans, Marchland. That's a little bit of a joke, actually. People calling me Marchland, and it's book related. I contributed to a kaiju anthology of short stories, and they put the names of all the authors on the cover, and they misspelled my name as Marchland.
Oh boy!
I had to tell, like if you look at the text of my story, it's fine, but on the front cover it says Nathan Marchland, and I'm like, no, that is not my name. So it's been like a little bit of a joke when whenever writing scripts for the story segments on the Monster Island Film Vault, because there's basically a fictionalized version of myself who's actually on Monster Island, because now there's a scientific facility and a resort and everything there. And so I have some characters just to get under his skin. We'll call him Marchland.
That's funny. I turn the typo into A little personal joke, you know? I like it.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often that happens.
I love it.
Yeah. So anyway, you were talking about how disaster movies are not high art, but
But I love them. They are my weakness.
yeah, you're a guilty pleasure.
Especially when the lovely Pierce Brosnan is in them.
So we know. So we have now confirmed who Alyssa's favorite James Bond is.
Yeah, I love him as James Bond. He's perfect. I also get the impression he's a really nice guy in real life.
I've gotten that impression too.
He seems devoted to his wife too, which is amazing.
Well, yeah, especially in Hollywood. That's who would have thought that the bar's set so low that just fidelity to one spouse makes you one of the cool people.
I was walking around downtown LA today, Nathan, and I've seen a lot today. The average people there are interesting. I can only imagine how much more interesting it gets when you're a celebrity. So yes, props to Pierce.
Yeah. I know for some people getting to LA and Hollywood is the dream, but
I would not want to live here. Full disclosure, like it's fun to come here for a weekend, like once a year. And typically with the goal of not doing LA things per se, but like doing things around LA. So like going to the Santa Monica Mountains, which I'm doing tomorrow, and hitting the state parks and stuff, which I'm also doing tomorrow. But, I was on one of my walks today and ended up down there. I was like, it's very beautiful. I see why people like it here. I will never live here, God willing.
This makes me think of, have you ever seen the movie Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg?
No, but I'm familiar with it a little bit.
Yeah, well, the premise is that you have basically a Las Vegas singer who witnesses a murder.
Oh.
And she has to go into it, played by Whoopi Goldberg, but she's like a Las Vegas singer. Okay. Now she's not like a showgirl or anything, but she's a singer in Las Vegas, and she has to go into witness protection because she witnessed a murder.
Yeah.
It was done by some gangsters. Well, they don't just put her in a safe house, they put her in a convent. So she has to pretend to be a nun.
The Sister Act. I see it now.
Yeah, that's why it's called Sister Act. Yeah. So then like all kinds of shenanigans ensue in there. Like she starts helping the nuns choir actually sing well, and and starts basically like teaching her how to sing like show tune versions of hymns, and then people actually start coming to the church again and things like that.
Funny.
But there is a sequence where she actually gets kidnapped toward the end of the movie. She gets kidnapped by the gangsters because she saw the murder that they committed, and the nuns are actually trying to go find her and help her. And there is a scene where some of the nuns are flying around in a helicopter with the police, and they're flying over, it's Las Vegas and Reno. And, someone points out to one of the, like the older nuns. There's like, oh yeah, that's Las Vegas and that's Reno. And she says, oh yeah, and Gomorrah.
That's LA.
Los Angeles.
Have you been to LA?
No.
I don't know what you would do with what you see here, Nathan. I don't know how you would process it here, because I was forewarned by media and social media and real people, and oh my goodness, it's all real. It's all true.
Yeah.
Quite the place.
I don't envy you, necessarily on there, but I have a list of places where I'm like, would probably visit there, don't want to live there, and then some are like absolutely not, unless absolutely positively necessary. Like unfortunately, Chicago's on my list, because I'm like, I don't want to live in Chicago.
That's
It's
honestly like,
dangerous. The taxes, everybody on a Sunday night. You know this because you experienced it firsthand when you came to G Fest. Apparently, the only thing people do in Chicago after 6 p.m. on a Sunday is smoke weed and shoot people.
my gosh, I smelled so much weed out there, just like nonstop. It's
Yeah,
like, can I get some real air, please?
yeah,
Ah,
yeah. I
I don't want to
remember.
lose my job.
Yeah, because I went over to the official after party, and I was there for like
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
then
know,
you were
30
just
minutes.
inundated.
Yeah, I
Your
was
lungs
like,
didn't have a
yeah,
chance.
I was like, I was there for like 30 minutes or so, and then I'm like, you know what? I think I've had enough, and I started walking back, and I walked past you, and you're like, is it still going on? I was like, uh-huh, yeah, have a good time,
I
and then
went there for like 5 minutes.
yeah,
And then I was done. I'm like, yeah, this isn't
yeah,
really my scene. I'm gonna go hide in my hotel room now and be an
yeah,
introvert.
yeah. Well, and then funny enough, you came back, and the two of us just hung out at the hotel
A little
restaurant.
table or
Yeah.
little bar thingy, yeah.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
just hung out for a little bit because we're like, yeah, the after party's not for us.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
Mm,
which is why since then I've started what I call the wholesome after party, where I just get some friends over, we play board games and eat pizza.
that's amazing. I love that. Good on you. I like wholesome things. It's very fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. So, kind of all these interruptions, it's like, derailing our
We've
trains of
been having
thought.
fun. It's okay. Fun
Yeah.
interruptions are not real interruptions.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of, well, we've talked a bit about this already, but one of the other things I was going to bring up, is that we talked about some of them already, but what other things inform your writing?
Um,
If there's
kind
anything that
of
we haven't talked about already.
kind of socio-political things, sort of like
Hmm.
trends, trends in how people relate to each other. I think is a big deal for me. So, like the latest novel I'm working on pokes some fun at the modern dating scene for Generation Z, which is sadly my generation. It's
Sadly, my generation.
rough. It is rough in the dating scene for a lot of people.
It's not great for millennials either.
No, so I've heard. Really, it's awful for everybody. But
Oh yeah, it's awful for everybody.
my generation has a lot of things to work out in the dating world. So stuff like that, like with my current book, that's very relevant. Um, yeah, honestly, just stuff like that. Just what's happening, what is affecting people on a grand scale, what's affecting people on a personal scale, are some things that I tackle with individual characters and with like the general themes of the story. So individual struggles will affect certain characters, and social stuff kind of informs some of the themes and that relates to the characters, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know, 22, you're like, I've barely started. Why are you asking me this? Yeah, but I would not call you an aspiring writer anymore. You have, in one form or another, you have arrived. You're just moving ahead.
Yeah,
After arriving.
I'm seeking the readership. The
Yeah.
readership is it's hard because of what I write. It's very hard to find the right kind of people who are very receptive to that. That's really my kind of what I'm doing right now. But as far as like being a writer, like yeah, I've done the thing. The thing has been done, and I just continue to do it. It's just a part of my life now. So yeah,
Which,
that's a fair assessment.
yeah, actually, before I get to the question I was going to get at, I have to ask. Although I was following you at the time, with your, when your first book was published, what was that like? Getting that first book published and then actually like, holding it in your hand, and you're like, oh
Oh
my
my
gosh, it's my baby.
That's how it felt. I remember distinctly when the first physical copies arrived. This was with the old cover, it wasn't the greatest cover for the book, but I loved it anyway.
As opposed to the self-portrait that's on the new one.
Well, I love that cover. I had
Oh
a
no, I
college
love it too. But every time I look at it, I'm just like, Alyssa, you
Oh,
trying to say
self-portrait.
something?
I just got what you said.
Yeah.
No comment.
I was gonna say, Alyssa, you trying to say something here? Why does Twilight look like
I'm the
you?
aspiring cannibalistic leader of a death cult. Yes, that's me.
Can you change your StreamYard descriptor to that?
Right?
Aspiring leader of cannibalistic death cult.
Job description: leading a death cult now.
Please sign up. Dinner is at 7.
Yeah, and
We might
dinner
be eating
dinner is
you.
definitely not vegan. It's not even vegetarian, not even
Yeah,
close.
yeah, you eat the vegans. That's what.
Yes. Yes. Yep. We eat lots of different types. Yeah, holding the book for the first time was unforgettable. Like, and I've published a few books since. It's still exciting, but there's nothing like the first one. There just really hasn't been, because it was the first time that I proved to myself what I'm capable of. And I knew that this is the first story that people were going to be able to read. Like, just people on the internet, people I didn't know were able to read, publicly available. They were going to pay me for this. It was insane. It's like, wow, I've done something here. I'm really stepping into something. It is really magical.
Yeah, actually, if you go onto my YouTube channel, go all the way back to my very, very first YouTube video, it was an unboxing. I was doing unboxings before unboxings were a thing.
Yeah.
That was me opening the shipment of the first copies of my book, and you can see my genuine reaction to opening it up and actually seeing the real book for the first time.
Yeah.
And it
Pure
just
joy, just bliss,
yeah, it was uncanny, and it's a feeling I feel like you can't really experience again. It's not that, and it's not that the subsequent books that get published, it's not that they're not important, it's not that they're not exciting, but it's
not the same.
It's not the same. Yeah,
I fully agree with that.
Yeah,
it's like kind of a one-time complete bliss.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the first time you are proving to yourself, I'm not just a writer, I'm an author. People are going to pay for this. People are going to read this. We're going to see what I'm really made of.
Mm-hmm. I think the closest I've come to experiencing that again, maybe when I started podcasting, getting podcast episodes out the first time. But I think the closest to experiencing the thing with the book again was probably when I did that one shot I told you about for Scyther. Because it wasn't just a case of, oh, I'm reading lines or, for this character or, like the short little bits that I do for the Film Vault. No, this is like, I'm doing everything and this is full length. It ends up being, just under an hour and I'm running everything here, the entire cast. I'm, the script, I'm editing it and like all these things. Then I'm throwing it out there and I'm just hoping that the Scyther fan base, and apparently my character, his name is Rito, he has a fan base in Scyther. I was like, what? When did I become a fan favorite? I am so confused right now because like he gets killed in the show and people are flipping out in the live chat for the YouTube premiere and they're like, no, anybody but Rito, and we're like, what?
That's so funny.
Yeah, so doing that and throwing that out there, I'm just like, oh my gosh, are they gonna like it?
Yeah, I think it's because it was a new medium for you. Is something you hadn't really done before like that, and it's like a new kind of high, I guess.
Yeah, it really is, and it's not just the case of, I wrote the script. That's one thing. It's I'm starring in this. I'm playing the character. I am directing the other actors, basically. I am editing this, and I am, it's like, did I make sure the character, there's good cadence for each scene and each character? Is the music appropriate? And it's in some ways more involved than just writing a book. I don't want to, minimize that, because writing a book is a challenge unto itself.
Yeah.
but there's all these extra layers of things, and it was funny, it was extremely well received. And it was just funny hearing people just kind of gush over it, where I'm just sitting here going, it's like, yeah, you say that, but I know every little thing I didn't do right when I listened back to
Mhm.
it.
Yep.
So, I was like, if you don't notice, that's great.
Totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, what I was trying to get at, you're not an aspiring writer anymore. But what piece of advice would you give to an aspiring writer? What would you say to, the up and coming 15-year-olds like you who are now at where you were back
Mhm.
then,
Hmm.
dreaming about getting that first book published? What would you tell them?
Boy, that's some hefty advice I need to give. Um, I'll try to give advice that's really guided me on and all of my writings. Write what's authentic. Don't set out to write an award-winning book. Don't set out to become an awarded journalist if you write essays like I also do. Um, Write what truly interests you, what truly inspires you, what you know, what affects you emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Write from lived experience, write from empathy, write what's real to you. Do not jump on trends, bandwagons, do not shoehorn yourself into communities or places that are not big enough to fit your being. I think truly exceptional writers, this is what I've observed, they defy convention, they defy constraints. They are larger than life in a way. Doesn't mean they do everything right, doesn't mean they're always on top of their game, doesn't mean they don't have faults, of course, but like the artists and creators I admire the most, they cannot be contained. It's because they're so authentic to themselves and to what they know and to what they've lived that they don't care about selling out. They don't care about following a trend. If they happen to follow a trend naturally, good for them. They'll probably do well. But one thing I'm really sick of in the writing realm is this huge emphasis on tropes and stereotypes and, ooh, my story has enemies to lovers. My story has like close proximity romance or something. My story has a swoon worthy villain. Please don't do that. I know this is going to fall on deaf ears because people kind of are going to do that anyways, and I get it. Sometimes we have to pay the bills. But I think if you want to be a truly exceptional writer, be real. Don't write something just to have a trope, just to have a marketing ploy, just to look appealing or trendy. Tell a real story. Everything else will fall into place. Be authentic to yourself, everything will fall into place. You hear that a lot, like be yourself. It's become kind of like a trite thing, but it's true. And when you're in the artistic realm and you're seeing people succeed by falling in line or like following the crowd, like it can be kind of troubling and you kind of have to remind yourself of that. Like, no, I need to write what brings me alive, what lights me up inside. And I can almost guarantee you if you're strictly following trends and you're just trying to get by, like you're not going to be lit up inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So be real.
it's a difficult thing. That's something I've thought about too. I've said for a while, and maybe I don't know, maybe this is why I'm not on well, it's one of many reasons why I'm probably not on the New York Times bestseller list. But
Hmm.
I'm just following trends has just never appealed to me.
Me either.
I just want to tell my stories, and
Exit stage left.
yeah, the greatest thing I feel like I could accomplish is being the trendsetter. I throw something
Yeah.
out there and then it gets discovered and everyone else is like, well, let's do that. And I could look at it,
Yeah.
then I could just laugh at everybody imitating me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that shows that you've done something really impactful.
Hmm.
That you've kind of awoken something in people. You've made them realize something that maybe they didn't realize before. So that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't think I've quite done that, But
Me
I
neither.
am, yeah, we understand each other.
Mhm.
but again, but like you said, it is more authentic that way, because yeah, there are people who are successful writers because they chase after the trends, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're great writers. Maybe not
Yeah.
even good writers, to be honest.
Mhm.
Some of
I've read a
the
lot of, I've read some bestsellers in my day, and I don't know how these books made it. Like, some of them were
yeah,
just really bad.
I've heard someone talk about it specifically with Stephen King. And
Mhm.
I thought this was an interesting statement where they said that Stephen King is a great storyteller, but he's not a great writer,
I could see it.
which is interesting. Interesting way of looking at it because King has a talent for concepts and for plots,
Yeah.
but he isn't. But his prose is not necessarily the most artistic. We'll
Mm.
say. And I've read some Stephen King, so I get that assessment. Whereas on the other hand, you can have people who are fantastic writers, but they aren't great storytellers.
Right.
Their books are it's 300 pages of very well polished cliches.
Yep.
That's my assessment. That's what it would amount to.
Mhm.
But their sentences are so pretty.
Right. It's kind of like style over substance,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
substance over style. Mhm.
yeah. To a certain extent, and again, my goal, and I don't know how well I've achieved that personally. My goal is to try to be, good at both if I can manage
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
you know, because for me personally, I think the aspect of writing that I've personally struggled with, and maybe this could be an interesting thing. I'd love to hear what your greatest personal struggle is with writing.
Mhm.
Mine is finding an authorial voice that I'm happy with.
Yeah. That's fair.
Because as I'm writing, I'm always worried, I get it. Purple prose is a danger that you want to avoid, but I always wanted to have, I wanted to have well-crafted sentences that are, I
Weighty,
guess really,
beautiful.
yeah, or at the very least beautiful, but like because some
Mhm.
of my favorite authors, Shakespeare, Tolkien, they're such masters of the craft and they can make things
Lush.
just so lush and beautiful. I know that's not appropriate for every kind of story, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I always struggled with that because I'm like, even if I like the story, if I read the text, I'm just like, this sounds so stupid, and then I just want to and then I just throw it away. I have abandoned short stories because I was just unhappy with how it was coming out, specifically over how it was sounding.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
sometimes I think about going back to them, but a lot of times I don't, and I don't know. Sometimes a little bit of separation, I finish it, put it aside, I go back and was like, oh yeah, actually this does sound very pleasant to read,
Yeah. Mhm.
Sometimes you need a little separation. But what's the aspect of writing that you struggle with most? And how do you cope with it?
I think for me, it's organization and logistics. Like, I can get really into the writing scenes and characters, and my characters are some of my favorite parts of writing because I really feel them. They feel really real to me. Um, but like, just sometimes it's just structure and organization, and like keeping track of details in the story that I forget about later, or they just don't make it, uh, and things that, like I said, like dates, times. I screw that up all the time. That is a huge issue I have right now with Dante. Is it's just who knows like what time of day it is half the time. And I'm like, I'm sitting here rereading this. I'm like, how did I write this? All of this, 45,000 words of this, and not ask myself, when is this? How did this character get here when they were there 5 minutes ago? So really, it's like those details. Details kill me.
Mm. which is interesting because, like I said, I've been reading through Merc Maiden, and I'm just like, man,
A lot of
really,
details.
what?
A lot of details in that book.
Yeah, I was gonna
So much
say
more.
it's yeah, all kinds of stuff in there. So you must have labored upon that hard.
It only took me 5 years. 5 years tends to give you just enough time to actually know what you're talking about.
Well, I might kind of sort of have you beat there. I started writing my first novel, Pandora's Box, when I started writing it in 2002, and it didn't get published until 2010.
I might not have even been born when you started writing.
I know. I don't. I get it. I don't look as old as I really am. It's one of my superpowers.
You don't. You do not.
When I was subbing at a school, that's my slumming day job right now. I'm a substitute teacher, and I walked into a classroom to go get something, and there was another sub who was in there because I had to go to another classroom for the rest of the days, but they needed someone in there the whole time. So I was there in the morning, and then I went in there and I saw the sub they were going to have for the afternoon. It was a kindly old lady, and she told me that she thought I was a senior when I walked in.
That's awesome.
I'm like, aha, superpowers. And there was one point, I think about a year ago, one of the students, when we were walking around in the hallway, thought I was another student.
That's awesome.
Just this past week, there were a couple of kids in a classroom who thought I was in my 20s. I'm like, yes!
There you go. Nathan, the fountain of youth over here.
Well, either that or I'm an immortal from Highlander. I don't know. If that's the case, keep all sharp objects away from my neck.
I love it. That's great. It's okay. I was volunteering a couple weeks ago, and there were a bunch of high school JROTC kids there, and they were calling their parents to get their rides to go home once the volunteer shift was over. And one of the ladies working there, she looked at me and she's like, "Where are your parents?" I said, "Oh, I'm actually already in the military." And she didn't miss a beat. She's like, "You're an adult?" I said, "Yes, I am." She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, "No, I get it a lot. It's okay."
It's because you look like you missed one of your growth spurts.
I probably did. I was too busy writing, just, stuck in my head, not living in the real world. My bones forgot to grow or something. I don't know.
The rest of puberty just flew right over your head.
I ate too much candy and not enough real food, and it just, my body's like, okay, we're done.
We are done.
The cells will now run on candy.
I will run on sugar. Look at my figure. I burn it all in 5 minutes.
Yep, pretty much.
I have the metabolism of a hyperactive hummingbird.
It's just my kid at heart, mentality. It affects my body too, I guess.
Oh well.
Yeah, such a shame.
Yeah, such a shame. I don't know how we're doing on time here. Don't let me keep you longer than you have. So so how are we doing? Just so I know.
I'm good. I'm more worried about the internet cutting out again because I feel like it probably will in about 20 minutes.
Okay, then if we still have time, but maybe not internet, then we shall lean into time.
Sweet.
Which actually, this is the kind of how I am. My brain makes crazy connections, and sometimes I verbalize the connection, sometimes I don't. But the saying, relying on time, you can't steal this. Just so you know. And anybody listening to this or watching this, you're not allowed to steal this either. But I had a friend some years ago who coined a word that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And I'm like, I am going to figure out some way to make that the title of something, to make that title of a story, and I will figure out how to have a plot that fits that cool title, which was Chronocide. which is the
Ooh.
killing of time.
Ooh. That's good.
So anytime you're saying like, "Oh, I'm just killing time," just really throw people off and just say, "Oh, I'm." So what are you doing? Oh, just committing chronicide.
That's I like that. That's really good.
So now I'm like, I need a plot to go with this title.
Amazing.
Chronicide.
Nice.
It's so evocative. It's like it sounds very scientific, but evocative at the same time.
Yeah.
I love it.
That is book title material. For sure.
Yeah, I could just imagine like you could do like if you really wanted to do more of a modern. I don't like most modern book covers. They're so boring. That's why I have to say, yeah. Even though it's just a picture of the title character, this is still more interesting to look at than a lot of other book covers.
Mm-hmm.
And like I could make picture as like it could actually be like a pocket watch that looks like it's cracked right down in half.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could get really crazy. You could put like little drops of blood coming out of the crack.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Chronicide.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So. You know what? There's a lot of things because, like I said, you've got such an incredible amount of output that we could get into, some of which we've only hinted at. We haven't really talked about your music, which, by the way, I always make sure to give attribution, and I know you've given me your blessing. I still use your music occasionally on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's very touching.
Yeah. So, like, the most recent time I used it was, I did an episode on Megalon. And so I used your Jet Jaguar punch.
I really like that one.
I used that cover. Yeah,
that one was so fun.
Yeah, so because what I do with the Godzilla episodes is I have one of my guests like give us a rundown of what happens in this movie, and then I put in some music, some appropriate music, and since that one was specific to that movie, it's like, and here we go, it's Alyssa doing Jet Jaguar.
That's amazing. I love that.
I have a strange appreciation for that smiley robot.
He's so cute. How could you not love him?
Well, yeah, the design is definitely amusing, but I was on growing up with Godzilla with Donnie Winter. So like I think about 2 years ago, I want to say, and we actually got onto that subject, about my strange appreciation for Jet Jaguar, and I wanted to say something a little more profound than just like he looks cool, or something like that. And I think the shorts, that the last couple of shorts where they had Jet Jaguar really exemplified this, because it's like they're like, hey, we're going to make Jet Jaguar in these shorts as cool as you remember him being. Maybe he actually wasn't this cool in the movie, but this is how cool you think he is.
That's awesome.
We're going to do that. I highly recommend them. They did a hetero short too. You should watch that one. You would love it.
Yes. It's very, very cool. I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, I said, I think it's just the simple heroism of Jet Jaguar. But he's powered by plot convenience, because it's just like, oh, guess what? I'm sentient now.
The greatest power in the fictional universe is plot convenience and plot armor.
It's like I don't know how, but Jet Jaguar's power source is plot convenience. That
Good for him.
Which is a joke, because Jet is a recurring character on the podcast. And I joke with him all the time about that. It's like, you're powered by plot convenience, dude.
That's awesome.
So it's like if he watches a movie and a piece of plot convenience happens, his battery gets charged a little bit more. But he's just like, oh, I have a job to do. I need to go do that. Oh, wait, Godzilla's not here yet because he's taking his sweet time. I better go fight those two goobers 2-on-1. I don't care. I got a job to do.
Yeah, he'll get the job done, or die trying, I guess. Break trying.
Yeah,
he'll do his very best.
Also, he is a master of charades. You can't beat Jet at charades. That's how he talks to. That's how he talks to monsters. It's like charades and semaphore. It's
so funny.
That might be one of the worst Godzilla movies ever made, if not the worst, other than maybe 98. But it's far from the least entertaining.
Oh, it's a fun little movie for sure. Yeah.
And here's my transition. We can use this to talk about. I want to talk at least a little bit about your ongoing project now on Patreon, because you just started a Patreon.
Yes, I did.
And I am a happy supporter on Patreon.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate that.
you're doing a serialized story called Godzilla Strange Flesh. And here's
Correct.
how I'm going to connect it beyond just the obvious. Somebody turns into a were-gigan. I'm just saying.
So where kaiju? That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So you were hyping this a bit yourself. Nice job, because and I'm going to bring this up on on the air this time. One of my favorite things you have ever said, and I told you this before we went on the air. It's like, I said that. Yes, you did in one of your videos. Like, oh, I remember now. Is you said you're talking about the release of one of your books, and you said desperation is indie hustle.
It's a lifestyle.
It really is. And so you were hyping it a little bit. Danny was hyping it for people. He's like, guys, go join her Patreon. You got to read this story. It's amazing.
I love Danny. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Danny is the hype man.
He is the hype
Who's
man.
also very deserving of hype himself.
Oh, yes, he
Mr. Godzilla Novelization Project and all the other millions of things that you do.
Oh yeah, he's a voice actor. He's a singer. He'll tell you he sucks at all of them.
Modern Renaissance man, Daniel Demana.
Yeah,
I am declaring it now. And Danny, you cannot argue. I know you're smiling right now. I know you're probably laughing. You're probably like, oh, no. I'm telling you.
Oh, not me.
We've established, Danny, I'm never wrong.
Danny, if
are the modern Renaissance man.
Danny, if I could somehow bottle your humility and sell it, I would be incredibly rich and I would magically make the world a better place. I am just saying.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I made sure, I was like, I got to make sure I read this before she comes on, because I was doing my due diligence, because I have a bunch of her books. I'm like, I need to read more of these. Just,
you're doing a lot of homework. I appreciate it. That's great.
I like I said, I do my due diligence. And I knew going in that this was going to be different. I knew it's technically fan fiction.
Yeah.
Yes. But I'm going to be honest with you, and this is coming from someone who has read his fair share of Godzilla fan fiction and has technically even written some of it thanks to the drama segments on the podcast. And that's how I cut my teeth when I was a teenage writer, was writing Godzilla fan fiction. Most of it didn't get out onto the internet, mostly because I didn't know how to do it, but I wrote it, at least for myself. And so this is one of the most unique Godzilla fan fictions I have come across.
Thank you.
I have seen some crazy stuff, but here's the difference. I could potentially point to stuff that was arguably wilder, but in retrospect, it feels a little out of place for Godzilla. Whereas this is definitely, I think, in the spirit of Godzilla while being incredibly different at the same time.
Wow, thank you. That's exactly what I was feeling and going for when I wrote the story.
Yeah. And it's definitely got a lot of the Sharpie-isms. It's all over this thing. You know? Yes. It's incredibly emotional. There's body horror and grossness and but it is not there purely for shock. That's what I really appreciate about your stuff. And I think that's where a lot of your critics, your naysayers, at least in the Christian community, what they are missing. You're not putting stuff in there purely for shock value. This is not exploitation.
Yeah, it's purposeful.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, there's a direct relation to the violence and the body horror in Godzilla Strange Flesh. It's very tethered to something.
Yeah. For those who don't know, because there's a lot of them, and hopefully you'll get some new patrons out of this. What is Godzilla Strange Flesh?
Oh, good. My elevator pitch I have not prepared, so let me.
Oh.
But yes, a very valid question. So, Godzilla Strange Flesh is a 10-chapter short story that I am currently releasing in weekly installments, although I've been extremely busy lately, so I need to take the weekly installments. I've been releasing weekly chapters on my Patreon. It is about a husband who, in the midst of this strange event where people are mysteriously turning into kaiju, not giant kaiju, but like he pointed out, kind of were kaiju, like human-sized, deformed
Yeah,
kaiju.
yeah.
He
Actually, there is a word for quote unquote human-sized monsters that's
is
related
there.
to kaiju. Yeah, kaijin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I like
there's
that.
actually I've done some presentations like
Yeah,
Kaiju 101, and I bring up related words
yeah.
in
That's
Japanese
really
to
good.
that, and kaijin is one because kaiju means strange beast,
Mhm.
kaijin means strange man or strange human.
Very good. Well,
So
on the
now
topic of
they're malleable terms, but
yeah,
yeah.
I like that. That's good. Well, on the topic of strange beasts, that's kind of what inspired the title of the story. Is these people like they're turning into these human-sized, super deformed, screwed up versions of the Godzilla monsters we all know and love. And this husband, he hasn't transformed yet. He's not showing any signs yet. He's just trying to figure out what's going on. And these monsters have like invaded his apartment complex. He lives in like this fictional city, and he's trying to find like a car or something that's still functioning to go rescue his wife who is still in their apartment complex. And he loves her dearly. They don't have the best relationship, but he wants to save her and get her out of this city that's turning into these monsters just mysteriously. And he's trying to figure out what is going on.
Hmm.
Why is this happening?
Hmm.
And you kind of learn how and why throughout the chapters, and at the end there's a big kind of reveal. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's
The
it's it's a body horror, dark, supernatural-esque story.
Yeah, because one of the more recent chapters that I read, I'm like, wait, huh? How does that
Mm-hmm.
work? But which I'll bring up in a moment. Spoiler warning ahead of time, just so people know, because I have questions about some of the things that happen in these chapters.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you didn't really mention is that the reason why this is a genuine Godzilla story is this outbreak, if you want to
Yes.
call it that,
Mm-hmm.
was triggered by Godzilla cells
Mm-hmm.
because the humans successfully kill Godzilla, which is an interesting way to start this.
Yeah.
You're starting off by
You're
saying
starting off with no
Godzilla.
Godzilla.
I was like,
Yeah.
Godzilla is dead already,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the aftermath of it. It's, I
Yes.
guess, in a way, it's almost like, even though I never want to see a sequel to Shin Godzilla, I could see something like this conceptually anyway working as a sequel to Shin Godzilla, even though I
I've had
don't want
several
one.
people tell me that. Several people. And then I think of the mutations on his tail at the end of the film. I'm like,
Yes,
I
which
see what you're saying.
apparently the only person who knows what those are is Ano, and he's not talking.
Yeah. And that was not intentional, by the way, but I fully appreciate the comparison because some of the things I really like about Shin Godzilla are those kinds of conceptual, creepy things. I
Hmm.
think Shin Godzilla is a very interesting Godzilla. Didn't care much for the movie per se. I appreciated what it was trying to do, but doesn't really work for me. But I did really like the Godzilla in that movie, and I was kind of flattered when people were making those comparisons. So yeah, there's a
Well,
bit of a post-apocalyptic feel to this,
yeah, well,
post-Godzilla apocalypse.
yeah, post Godzilla apocalypse. Well, the reason why I'm also thinking about that is because one of the things that you're doing, this is such an interesting presentation, where these posts where you have these serialized chapters. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the text of the chapter, you throw in little bonus goodies. Like at the end of the
Yes.
first one, you're like, here's where I got my crazy, creepy idea. Here's a snapshot into my twisted little brain. And
Mm-hmm.
and you go into it, which I love hearing that. I have a short story collection where at the beginning of every story, I have this little introductory paragraph saying, like, here's where I got the idea for this,
Yeah.
and then the text of the story starts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that part of this this Sharpian presentation is you include a link to a YouTube video of the chapter theme song, and chapter 3 was Persecution of the Masses from Shin Godzilla. I'm like,
which also wasn't intentional because at the time no one had told me. Like, I made this playlist before I finished the story, so no one had told me yet about like the Shin Godzilla thing, but there we have it.
Yeah, because when I saw that, because I'm like, wait, you're telling me this piece of music is indicative of this chapter? You are setting expectations, miss.
Yep.
You are setting expectations, and then it goes. And I have been riveted. Like, I was burning through these chapters last night because I'm like, I have to read them. Like, I need more. Like, I got to chapter.
I'm gonna
4.
put one up tonight.
I was gonna say I got to
so
chapter.
busy.
I got to chapter 4, and I'm like, why hasn't she posted anything for 3 weeks?
After this stream, guys, chapter 5 is coming.
Yeah,
It's coming.
yeah. I may have just incentivized ending the stream now. Obviously,
I'm very flattered. Thank you. I'm so glad you like
but
it.
yeah, so I have been riveted with this, and yeah. So Godzilla is backstory. He's lore.
Yes.
He's not. He has a presence, arguably, in this story, but he's not really in the story. But then some of his compatriots arguably have a greater presence in this because people are mutating into these deformed perversions of these monsters.
Perversion's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So how I approached the story was I didn't want to tell a typical kaiju story, obviously. I mean, like you said, I didn't really do that. What I wanted to do was the effect of Godzilla on humanity. Because Godzilla always has a point. There's always a point to these movies. There's something that Godzilla stands for in these movies. And instead of just having Godzilla point blank in the movie, or in the story, I wanted to show the deeper, more like external implications of Godzilla. This is a story about implications, not as much about an existing like presence. This is how Godzilla reflects on humanity, the kind of relationship between Godzilla and humanity, and how what that can teach us about life and ourselves, less about just strict kaiju story. There are some fight scenes, though, everybody. I'm not skimping you on those. I know we have to have those. And I had a lot of fun writing the fight scenes. In fact, I do believe Chapter 5 has a big fight scene. I think. I'm pretty sure.
I'm just saying, where Gigan? That was an action sequence. This guy turns into like I couldn't quite tell. You reference events that are technically Final Wars, but he sounds more like Showa Gigan to me. But regardless, it's this guy who's like, I can murder you for whatever reason. He's just chasing this guy, and he's like, oh no, and he's running, and he gets into a trolley, and then where Gigan starts beating on the trolley trying to get it, and
that tells me where we're at.
Yeah, I was just like, and that's the cliffhanger. It's like the trolley starts going away. I'm like, no,
don't worry, I'm gonna deliver tonight. It's gonna be okay.
I was just like,
let me go take a look actually at the story and let me see what Chapter 5 really is gonna be, because I can't quite remember right now. It's been a little bit since I published it, but let me see. Yeah, let's see here. We're going. Where's Chapter 5? Oh yeah, Chapter 5 is the fight scene, guys.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'm gonna plug my computer in. Yeah, Chapter 5 is a fight scene, and it's gonna be a fun one. And we start seeing a little more of what's going on in the story in Chapter 5 too. It's kind of a turning point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can only do the wandering around for so long.
Yeah. No, we're getting somewhere. We're turning up the heat in this chapter.
Yeah. So far you've had somebody, and obviously you had to do this because it's you. Somebody turns into basically Hedera.
Oh
That
yeah,
was probably the most horrifying one out of all of them. I'm going to be
that one
honest.
was so fun. That transformation was so fun to write. I have just no regrets for the nightmares I'm going to give you all. No regrets.
I'm going to traumatize all of you.
Yes, it's a lofty goal, and if I can achieve it,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So people like a year from now, people start calling up. It's like, I loved Strange Flesh. I had therapy because of it for 6 months.
That's how I felt about Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I love that movie, but it scared the acidic sulfuric acid crap out of me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you had Gigan. One person became Megaguirus. That was an interesting choice, I thought. But this is the one that puzzles me. This is why I warned everybody. Spoiler warning. Mechagodzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because when I was reading, I'm like, okay, this makes thematic and emotional sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
Physical
what?
I will
How
not
does it
speak to
turn
the
somebody
reasonings.
into a robot?
I will not speak to the reasonings behind my process here because it will get revealed toward the end.
Okay.
You'll kind of be able to see, like, I don't fully explain that, like, particularly, but you'll kind of see, like, how that sort of thing could happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just a little, because when it started, we got to the description of that, and you started getting into it, like, wait, what?
Wait a second. Did you catch on pretty fast?
I caught on. I think
once
the yellow eyes got mentioned, like, wait, what yellow eyes? Who has yellow eyes?
Yep.
I'm going through all of my Godzilla kaiju files. I'm like, wait, who has yellow? Is it Mechagodzilla? And then I get there, like, Mechagodzilla, what?
I love it. I love it. I'm glad you caught on because you're paying attention and it's really fun. I'm glad that you're having fun with this.
Yeah. Also, I guess you're probably just amused by the fact that I have like a rotoscope of Godzilla knowledge that I'm like,
yes, you're like, wait, who on the roster could be this one? Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been fascinating, and actually a question that occurred to me. You know, what when you were talking about it, and this goes back to this kind of a craft related thing. This one, unless I'm speaking out of turn here, but based on what I have read and what I have seen, this one seems to be a new something a bit new for you. Your protagonist is male. Now, it's not in first person.
It's so interesting you point that out because I noticed that too.
Yeah. It's not in it's not in first person, but it's third person limited, and you are spending a lot of time. It's Brant is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, you're spending a lot of time in Brant's head.
Yes.
And so I'm paying really close attention to this. Once I figured this out, I was like, wait, we have a young woman writing a male protagonist. Yes. I really need to pay attention to this now because I am in fact a male. So I need to make sure that she's doing this right. And it makes me I can relate to this, but obviously in the opposite way, because my first novel, this just shows you how crazy I was, because I decided my first novel, my very first book, had to have a female protagonist and would be largely written in first person. And I'm like, frick, what am I doing? But the story, but it was one of those things I jokingly tell people, it's like, I do what the story tells me. And the story told me I need a female protagonist. So like, okay, fine, we're doing a female protagonist. But then I was like, crap, I'm a guy writing a female protagonist. So am I going to get this right? So I did have some women read the book and they told me, oh, it's fine. Also, I will admit I cheated a little bit because she's a bit of a tomboy. She enlisted in the futuristic military, so that kind of comes with the territory. And basically all of the supporting characters are male. Yeah. I love that. So I'm like making up for it. Like her best friend is male. She has a boyfriend. She has a boyfriend who, things develop, as that story goes on. I won't give any more spoilers beyond that. I have spent a lot of time with her dad. She has brothers, I just realized it's how I was compensating. I'm like making all the other characters male.
So it was easier. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what was it like for you writing a male protagonist as a young woman?
So I've written male protagonists before, and something I've noticed is all of the short stories I've written, at least most of them, the ones I'm thinking of right now. I did a Godzilla fanfiction a couple years ago, male protagonist. I did a original story that's up on my website, male protagonist. This story, male protagonist. I've noticed short stories I write have male protagonists, books have female protagonists. I don't know why. There's no like hidden reason. It's just if I guess like psychologically, if I'm going to be spending a lot of time in a character's head, hence a large body of work like a novel, a large piece of work, I guess I'm more drawn to writing from a female perspective, or I have more to say from a female perspective, and that's easier to do with a book. And when it's shorter, I guess it's easier to write from a male perspective. Honestly, though, it's not that difficult writing from the opposite gender's perspective, simply because I think we're all people, and we all like the stuff I tackle in my writing is universal. Like I said, there's a lot of universal stuff being dealt with, and also from the outsider perspective, outsider males tend to share some traits with females. Outsider females tend to share some traits with males. Like you were saying, your tomboy female protagonist, it's easier to write a nuanced, kind of almost androgynous character. And I feel like it's just easy to do because characters who aren't super strictly male or female, very traditional, they're just kind of people. Like we're all people, but it's easier because they're nuanced. So it's like they have traits that you have, they have traits that they have. It was fun, honestly. Brant in Godzilla Strange Flesh, he's an emotional character. That's personal to me. I'm like that myself, and that's just what this guy is.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does make Sorry, you cut out for a second. I was trying to comment on that. What you're saying is definitely true, and he's also in. I think that emotion is coming out because he's in a very intense situation right now, and he's dealing with something where there is a lot of emotional investment because his goal. This is what I think is I think very good for this because it's not a short story per se. It's more like a novelette because it's going to end up being like what I think you said 10,000 words total. That's kind of more like novelette territory there. So it's because it's longer than a short story, which is why I think the serialization format is great for this.
Yeah.
And his goal, and when you have a shorter piece like this, you need to have a very clear goal. He's trying to find his wife.
Yeah.
So again, very intense situation. And he's looking for somebody that he has a lot of emotional investment in.
Yes.
And as the story goes on, we find out, yes, he is very intent on finding her because he's a good husband. But things are not necessarily happy between them. Right.
Exactly. That's where the human part comes in, is everybody has interpersonal problems.
Yeah. So I do think that is lending some. So I haven't really been bothered by his level of emotion because I can understand that. Because even though because you're dealing with a lot of the internals of Brant, because he's not necessarily expressing all of those, partly because he's like, I am trying to dodge monsters right now. I can't like hide in a corner and cry right now. I have problems to deal with.
Exactly.
So he's doing what men do. They compartmentalize it and take care of what's in front of them. But because they compartmentalize it, it's just because they're not expressing it doesn't mean they aren't dealing with it. And I think that is what I think has really made this work for me, is because he's wrestling with that internal turmoil.
Yes.
While trying to keep it tamped down while he's dealing with the immediate problems, which is that guy just turned into Hedera. Keep him away from me.
Yep. There's so much external conflict that it kind of balances with the internal.
Yeah. So I've actually been very happy about that. And you unabashedly have imperfect protagonists in this because I'm rooting for Brant.
Yeah.
And I sympathize with Branch because because of his frustrations with his wife. The scene that really sticks out is you have a bit of a flashback, and this
Mm-hmm.
really resonated. I think this resonated with me, and I think it would resonate with a lot of guys, which is he's trying, his wife is saying, like, I want to go get plastic surgery. I want to fix my nose. It's like, why? Your
Mm-hmm.
nose? I was like, why? Your nose is perfectly acceptable. He's like, are you saying I'm only acceptable? And he's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's not
That
what I
was
mean.
straight up male female dynamics right there. I knew
Yeah.
exactly what I was doing when I wrote that part.
Yeah. And he's just like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, I was like, that's every guy right there. You say something that makes sense to you anyway.
And then they kind of
And then your girlfriend, wife, or whatever, it interprets it completely differently and uses it to reinforce her insecurities. You're like, no.
not what I meant. Yep.
so and then he punches a hole in a wall, as you put it. So,
Mm-hmm.
which then gets her
He has
scared.
anger issues.
So I'm looking at it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm with you, Brant, but punching a hole in the wall.
That'll come back later. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That kind of activity, that kind of choice making comes back. In fact, you'll
Yeah.
kind of start to figure out what's going on in chapter 5.
Ooh. We may have to do a follow-up. We have to do a follow-up when this is done. Ooh. We'll do a Godzilla Strange Flesh after show.
Be awesome.
Patreon exclusive.
That'd be fun.
We actually should probably do that. We'll do a
That would
little
be really cool.
We'll do a little after show, yeah, for Godzilla Strange
Yeah.
Flesh for your Patreon. There you
I like
go.
it.
More
Mhm.
subscribers coming
Yes.
coming soon.
Perfect.
So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this. It's interesting, how you had to approach that, and I do think, because I would love to do, and maybe you could come back for this. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I would love to do, I'm making like a list of topics that I would like to talk about on these monthly streams.
Yeah.
And I do think it would be interesting to tackle the topic of, if you're a male writer, what do you need to be mindful of writing female characters? If you're a female writer, what do you need to be mindful of writing male characters?
That'd be
Because
cool. Yeah.
a lot of times we can get stuff wrong, and we could, base them on things that might be more, based more in like a fantasy than they are necessarily reality. I saw a guy who did some videos about this. Male writers might be like, writing women who are like, ready to, drop everything and make love right there or something like that, or they dress scandalously all the time when really they don't.
Mhm.
Or female writers
Yeah.
will write men as being like perfectly emotionally sensitive, and they always know what the woman is thinking and all that. Like, they're all based in these idealized fantasies that aren't really true.
Yeah, pretty much. Mhm.
Yeah. So it might be interesting, get a panel of people and we can come on and, and talk about that. I think it's a fascinating topic because we've all
Yeah.
had to deal with it at one point or another. We can't avoid writing the opposite gender. It's just kind of impossible.
No. At some point you have to.
Yeah, at some point you do have to.
You
So
tell enough stories, probably should.
yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. What are some what can you let us know about, without giving any spoilers? So, like, what can you tease us a little bit about? What can we expect in the next, I don't know, month and a half as you post new chapters?
Oh, well, I think the story's going to wrap up in a month and a half, probably. Should be,
Yeah.
because it's every week, and there's about 5 left, or 4
Yeah.
left once I put this one up. Boy, I think you're going to see more monsters that you love. They're going to embody things that make sense. Like, at first you might be like, huh, but then you're like, wait, that actually totally fits that monster. And you're going to learn what's causing these mutations. That does have a clear answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm honestly not sure how this is going to end because I'm like,
Good. That means
I
I'm
guess
not being too obvious, which is fine.
yeah. Well, I guess I'm just like, is Brant gonna find his wife? If he does, is she gonna be like, I don't know, Titanosaurus or something?
It's gonna be so fun. I can't wait till you get to that these
I mean,
chapters.
Titanosaurus kind of squeals like a horse or something, so I guess it would make some weird sort of sense, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Or is Brant gonna make it out alive? Is he gonna mutate into something? Like I'm asking all these questions because I'm not sure where it's gonna land.
It's going to start to reveal itself, like I said, in chapter 5. Literally, this next chapter is where we start to see stuff.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. I'm excited for you to read that.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. So yeah, like I said, maybe we should do a little after show,
Yeah.
So is this going to remain strictly a Patreon exclusive? You're not going to put it on like fanfiction.net or anything weird like that?
Probably not. Yeah, it'll probably stay on there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I respect that. You've got other things to throw out into the public, like Dante.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I did. It's buried a little bit farther up, but Edwin Gonzalez, who's one of my most ardent fans, like he just listens to all of my podcasts. He's a patron, and now he's buying my books. So it's like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to know how you were spelling Dante.
Just like the Italian poet, Dante.
Okay, because apparently his middle name is Dante, so he wanted to know how it was spelled.
That's a pretty awesome middle name.
Yeah, Edwin Dante Gonzalez. I like it.
That is a strong name.
Yeah, it's a strong
name. It's got some power to it.
Yeah, might be why I named. Bringing up Pandora's box. Might be why I named her boyfriend Dante.
Did you?
I did.
Oh,
that's why I was thinking about that when you said like I'm working on a book called Dante, and that's the name of my main character. And I'm like, huh.
Boyfriend's named Dante. I love this.
That's awesome. And he was a sensitive soul. He was a poet at heart. He was a soul. He was also a soldier because Pandora is a soldier, but they're in two different branches. He's a UN peacekeeper in the future, and she's part of like a very elite new unit. The branch, I guess, would be a more accurate way to put it. Mm-hmm. And they just happened to meet one time on a mission, and things got started.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, and his name was Dante. So
wow, look at that.
Yeah, funny how that works. Yeah. So I told people, hey, if you want to, take a few minutes that we have here, want to throw some questions out for Alyssa or myself, preferably Alyssa, because she's the guest here. I'd love to, take some. I know some people were throwing some in there. I'm just going to back here, see if there's some interesting comments that I didn't quite highlight.
I will be right back while people do their comments. We'll be back in like a minute or two.
Bathroom break.
I drank a lot of water today, so
yep. Do your thing.
I'm very hydrated. All right, off I go. I'll be back.
All right.
You handle the reins from here, Nathan. I know you got this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been told I'm very good at that. All right, let's see.
All right.
Let's see. What do we have here? Yeah, so like I said, throw in some questions if you've got them. Let me see. Well, that's not really a question, but some comments there that would be good. Yeah, here's the Dante or Dante. Yeah, that he was talking about, Edwin. Just asking because because one way of saying that is my middle name. Yeah, is it actually pronounced differently? Is it Dante and Dante? I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced differently, just looking how it's written. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, this is just some comments about, things we were talking about. Let me see. some comments about the technology issues. She's frozen, and ruh from Danny. And let me see. Da-da-da-da. Yes, Nate, you're still on. Yeah, I saw that.
All right, I'm back. Am I
Yeah.
working?
Yes, you are still working. Yeah.
Cool.
So I just highlighted some things, like people saying like, "Oh my gosh, she froze or disappeared," and yes, we can still see you. And
Just selectively disappeared this time. I chose
yeah,
to.
selectively disappeared. Yeah. Autistic Lizard Productions called you Kaiju Sister. So
Nice to see you, buddy. How you doing?
yep. Yeah. We just did it. Like I said, Danny and I just did a stream with him about Jurassic Park on Tuesday.
Nice.
Yeah. And I announced that I was interviewing you tonight at the end of that stream. Yeah. Jane Meyer here says, yeah, Angel Studios does great current time movies. Okay. I'll take your word for it.
All right.
Yeah, let me see. And then here's the Dante or Dante thing that Edwin was asking me about. Quick comment here from Danny. This is going back to some of the things we've talked about tonight. So I write scripts for a living. I can take a few hours to craft a full script or half a day for a longer one. Once they're recorded and edited, it takes between 4 to 8 minutes to experience it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's just wild how that happens. He also brings up, perspective is a fascinating thing,
I'm really slow on the screen. Like, I'm watching my several seconds delayed responses.
That hotel internet. What are you gonna do with it? Trust me. I've dealt with it before. Yeah.
It's not.
Jedi Grandvel says that was wild technology. Who can predict it? Yeah.
Can you hear my voice? Like, is it coming through delayed?
Yes.
Because look at my like. I'm like in slow-mo over here.
At least you're still here. That's the important part.
Yeah. For now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been noticing weirdness like that for the entire night. So
really?
It's not.
I haven't noticed it on my end until just right now. Yikes.
Yeah, trust me, you won't see it on your end. I've had it happen to me, and I think I'm doing fine, and then people tell me like, "No, we can't hear you," or "Why are you slowing down?" And
oh boy.
Yep. Yeah, and see. Oh, that's the Terminator pummeling. Because Danny was bringing up about how he helped you find that hetero location, and he's like, "Yeah, it was really close to your base," so that's why he was helping you out.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Wait, your name isn't actually Marchland? I've been forging checks with your name and spelling it wrong all these years. I need to make a phone call.
I think Nathan's gonna make a phone call too to the cops.
Danny, you have betrayed me.
Oh, Danny, how could you?
Yeah. You're going to have to help me with this one. I don't remember the context. It's a fantastic movie. Maggie Smith is a treasure. I miss her.
I think he's talking about the Sister Act.
Sister Act. Okay. I think that's what it was.
Maggie Smith is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Let me see. Kind of just going through here.
I'm worried I'm going to lose this.
Danny. We eat the vegans. They're going to throw you out of LA.
Yeah, they are. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they are. You know how many food restaurants are here? So many.
Yeah, I do want to highlight this. Jake says thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Jake is former Army. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Current Navy.
Yeah.
Nice.
What rank are you now, by the way?
Rank?
Yeah.
I'm an E5.
E5? Okay. I will admit I've done research on military ranking to make sure I fully understood it, and I wasn't basing it off of pop culture. But I'm trying to remember where exactly that is in Navy.
That's petty officer second class.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah. Working on first class one of these months or years.
Yeah. Yeah. Danny says, I might have to update my Twitter handle to Humble Hype Man. Thank you, Alyssa. Your kindness and goodness always lift me up.
Oh, Danny. Likewise, my friend.
Yep. Oh, and happy birthday, Autistic Lizard Productions. His birthday is tomorrow.
Wow. It's exciting. Congrats.
Yep. I believe Danny's birthday is coming up in the next couple of days too. And my
Prompt come up
brother's
on my computer.
my birthday
I don't know why
will.
it's not charging right now.
Oh
boy.
Uh-oh.
Weird. My computer is not charging.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
Right
She's going
now.
robot. She's going robot. I don't know what to do.
About to die.
No.
That's
I don't know what you're saying. I think we're going to lose her again, guys. I'm sorry. What is happening? Oh, no. Alyssa. I don't know if it's your laptop now or what, but
oh boy.
Are you there? You were bugging out.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I couldn't for a while. You were bugging out. Yes.
My computer is being really weird. It's like not charging for some reason. We may have to put the e-brake on for this because it's being really weird right now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. We don't have, thankfully we don't have any questions here. I'm just going to highlight a couple more comments and then we'll wrap this up because I don't trust your laptop either.
No. Good
yeah,
call.
but anyway, I brought up that tomorrow is Autistic Lizard Productions' birthday. Yesterday was my brother's birthday. Danny's birthday's in a couple of days. It's crazy. Amazing. Why is everyone having late February birthdays? This is nuts.
It is interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because normally the most popular month for birthdays in my family and my circle of friends is November.
Okay.
I blame Valentine's Day. Do the math.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's funny.
Yeah, and Danny says, all shall be revealed, Senor Nathan.
Yes, starting tonight, you will start to peel back the layers.
Not to be that guy, Danny, but it should be, if you're going to use Spanish, it should be Natan. I took Spanish for 2 years in college. It was Natan. The TH sound does not exist in Spanish. Yeah.
Go.
Well, Drew Dodgen says hi because he came over here from Facebook.
Hello.
Yeah, he's one of my podcast friends. He hosts the Cellcast, which is an animation podcast.
Nice.
And I've had him and his co-host Jacob on the Film Vault a few times. Anytime I have to do anything animated that involves kaiju, I'm like, hey guys.
That's great.
Yeah. And then some more here from Danny. I understand you interviewed several prominent potatoes for your article in Idaho Magazine. What are your secrets for Spud communication? All kidding aside, you've got to plug this article.
Oh, yes. My first print travel article and my second travel article overall detailed a trip I took in October to my second home state, Idaho. And I just wanted to get out, go for a little trip, and have some time exploring. It was very fun. And yeah, I stayed in a giant potato Airbnb outside Boise.
Made out of literal potatoes?
No, but it was like the promotional Idaho potato, like giant potato that they would drive around across the country advertising Idaho potatoes. They retired that one, and now it's a little hotel. And yeah, it was super awesome. And there's a cow there too.
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's a cow.
And I ate a
So
bunch of potatoes and fries and an ice cream potato, which looks
what?
just like a baked potato, but it's only ice cream and like cocoa powder. It's incredible. This is all talked about in my article that Danny is mentioning. It is out now. Idaho Magazine, their February 2025 edition. That's where my article is featured. All original photos I took are also in it, so that's pretty fun. Yeah, it's the full raw and real story of my time. That's correct, Adam. It is indeed.
Potato is life.
It's the full story of that trip. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. The Spudley, all of
The
it.
Spudley.
Mm-hmm.
The Spudley.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm picturing. He's talking about you interviewing potatoes. I'm just picturing you sitting at a table surrounded by differently designed Mr. Potato Heads. It's like,
I saw
so.
lunch.
Yeah, it's like, so what's it like living in Idaho for you?
I
That'd be funny.
saw a bunch of them at the Idaho Potato Museum. This is another thing I did.
Ah, of course there's a potato museum. Now in Indiana it's corn. That's our thing.
Mm-hmm. The Midwest thing is corn, yes.
Well, Indiana in particular, it is definitely like we make jokes all the time about corn. There's even a theme park in Indiana where when I was growing up, the slogan for the theme park, it was called Indiana Beach. It's in Monticello, Indiana.
Okay.
And and their slogan was, "There is more than corn in Indiana."
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So, so that's, and secondarily it's soybeans, but that's more like southern Indiana as they got the soybean things. It's more commonly corn.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Okay.
So if you ever visit Indiana, let me know. We'll hang out and
Nice.
I'll show you some cool Indiana things. We have some amazing state parks that you would lose your freaking mind at.
Nice.
If you I will tell you right now, if you come to Indiana and you only visit one state park, we have a lot of state parks in Indiana. I visited almost all of them. If you only ever visit one, go to Brown County, because Brown County doesn't look like the rest of Indiana.
Nice.
Because it has lots and lots of hills and forests, and the hills look like mountains. It's ridiculous.
I love state parks. They're so fun.
Yeah. It's like, if you ever watch it's like I was watching Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is supposed to take place in Indiana, but it's a fictional town. It's a fictional town, Hawkins, Indiana. Hawkins, Indiana doesn't exist.
Okay.
But when I'm watching this, I'm like, that does not look like Indiana, except maybe Brown County. Is Hawkins in Brown County? That's the only way this makes sense. And then I see in the credits that that it looks like it was filmed in Georgia. I was like, no wonder.
That's awesome.
No wonder. But yeah, I have some affinity with Stranger Things because it's set in Indiana, and apparently horrible Lovecraftian things and secret evil government projects happened there in the 80s.
I love the first 2 seasons of that show. Like them a lot.
Yeah, I haven't seen season 4 yet. Yeah, I haven't seen season 4 yet, so I can't comment. Yeah. Potato is good. Potato is life.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's one quick question. We'll end on this. Although Autistic Alyssa Production says visit Chicago. She has, sir, several times.
I went last fall, actually.
Yeah.
Before I went to Idaho.
Yeah. But he does have a question. We can wrap this up pretty quickly with this. He says, have you ever read the Michael Vey book series?
I have not.
Yeah. I haven't either. So not to disappoint you there. But all right. Don't trust the laptop, but thank you, Alyssa, for joining me this evening. It has been a pleasure. I would love to have you on again. If
Absolutely.
either to do a follow-up. If you want to do some hype for Dante, come on and we'll talk about
sweet.
Dante. We'll get the hot train going there. Yeah.
Awesome.
You get that indie hustle going,
Yes. Desperation is mine.
If I could retitle this episode, I would do that. Desperation is indie hustle.
Put in the thumbnail. Just add it on, post. post
why not?
upload. Yeah.
Yeah. You should write a book. You should like write a how-to book for writing and just call it Desperation is Indie Hustle.
So
How to be successful as a writer but not a rich writer by Alyssa Charpentier.
mhm.
How to be a successful but poor writer.
Yes.
By Alyssa
How to have the stuff and not make any of the green stuff from it.
For sure. So,
Mhm.
as is tradition with me and everything I do, it is now time for shameless self-promotion.
Yes.
Which is one of my spiritual gifts, and I'm sure is one of yours as well, because
Yes.
it's somewhere in the Bible. I mean, I'm sure Paul mentioned it somewhere.
Go forth and spread
it's in
the
the
good
list.
word.
I'm sure, it's in the list somewhere. That's the other joke I do is I tell people, shameless self-promotion is my spiritual gift. So,
So
anyway, plug away.
All right. Patreon, it's a big one. I'm coming out with Chapter 5 of Godzilla Strange Flesh tonight. So if you go over to Alyssa Charpentier on Patreon, my little handle thingy says, what does it say? Let's go see what my page says. Fantasy, pop culture, writing guidance, Godzilla, Alyssa Charpentier, author/essayist, if that makes it clearer. That's where I'm doing the story. And yeah. Stay tuned. You can follow my Amazon page if you want to stay updated with like books I'm coming out with. Apparently, I have followers on there, which I wasn't aware of. Dante is coming out this summer or fall. It is a contemporary dark romance thriller drama, whatever. However, I'm going to condense that down. It's going to be creepy. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a little unsettling, but I'm good at that. So those are my major things I've got right now.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less from you, which is why. Actually, the one book of yours that we didn't really talk a whole lot about is like as opposite of that as possible, because A Maiden's Wish, which is more of it's a novella, and it's more of a I haven't read it yet.
Cleaner, gentler story for sure.
But
gotta have
also,
one every 5 dark books you write. You gotta throw
yeah. But it's still touching on a lot of the sort of things that you always like touching on, which is interesting.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So at some point, that would be an interesting thing to talk about, in a follow-up as well, if we wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But you got your crazy thriller coming out first.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. So if I may ask, do you have any other big plans for the Patreon once Strange Flesh is done?
I will be sharing like unfiltered articles and essays that I'm allowed to share on there, and just kind of like writing advice and stuff, writing updates, kind of glimpses into my life as a writer. That's going to be a big part of the Patreon as well.
Yeah. And Strange Flesh after show, people.
Yes, I think that should be in the works.
Oh yes. We're gonna make that happen.
I have a fan here. You can't let him down.
Don't disappoint me. You need to go sign up for the Patreon so you can see more Godzilla-centric shenanigans with us.
Absolutely.
Raw and uncut.
Yes.
You're gonna hear what a potty mouth that Alyssa has. I
love it.
I know she looks so sweet and innocent and unassuming, and then the F-bombs start coming.
I love it.
That's actually something I want to do. I have a brewing idea for like a military themed space opera that I want to do at some point. It'd be like this grand epic that I would love to do.
The F word needs to make up about 80% of the sentence that every character says.
Actually, what I want to do, I think would be even funnier, because this is like way in the future. I want them to actually have a weapon that is nicknamed the F-bomb.
I love that.
Because it's like some long, goofy sounding word that starts with F, and then all the guys in the military is like, we just call it the F-bomb.
That's so funny. I want to see this.
And just to make it even better, it's like the most powerful weapon they have. It's like they throw that at something, it's like dead.
Funny. Like, we got to see it.
Yeah, but anyway, Anyway, just really quick because we got to wrap up before the treachery of the laptop is complete.
Before it
treachery
has
of
its way.
treachery of the laptop is also a title for something.
Yes.
Just like
The
I
new
was talking.
dystopian novel.
Sometimes I will tell you, sometimes titles can come from the weirdest places, and you're like, I need to make this. I need a cool story to go with this, like Chronicide. But there was another one I did on Facebook a couple months ago, where people were trying to suggest that I try online dating again. I was like, no, I will not, because the dating is already stupid, and and dating apps are the epicenter of the hellscape. And then I stopped, just
Yes.
like, actually, epicenter of the hellscape sounds like a great title.
That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah, but anyway, check out my author website, check out my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com, and all of my podcasts, so Monster Island Film Vault, monsterislandfilmvault.com, Henshin Power V3, and, check out my work with Scyther Audio, particularly if you are a fan of Power Rangers or Marvel properties. I mentioned Rito earlier. I also, to my surprise, was asked to play Deadpool on X-Men.
Ooh, okay.
I was just a post-credit gag, but I have been assured once Deadpool shows up as a proper character, I will be reprising the role.
Wow.
Never in my life would I have expected to be asked to play Deadpool.
Wow, Nathan. Okay.
If you want to hear it, Alyssa, I'll play it for you when we're done.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It's like 5 minutes maybe. And
Wow.
I also, on the Avengers spinoff of X-Men, which is run by the guy named Mitch. He's done crossovers with the Fantastic Four, with the Avengers, and I'm Johnny Storm, baby.
Wow.
The Human Torch.
Hey. That's very cool.
Yeah, and Mitch is in the process of making because he's like, I wish I had the time and bandwidth to do a Fantastic Four show, but I don't, because he's like, I love the people I have for the Fantastic Four. They're so good. And it's like, I was just messaging him one time, and I just like, why don't you just do a one shot?
Yeah.
Just to say you did it. And I lost Alyssa. I lost Alyssa. But anyway, I'll just say, yeah, go check all of that out. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we lost Alyssa. I'll say goodbye for her. So thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you next time.